The human world, the underworld, and the heavenly world. All three worlds tried to maintain equality. However, over time, this world collapsed. In the heavenly world, lightning occurred frequently, destroying everything around. The mysterious dark force is the Kuntan force. The word plague filled the clear sky with speed. The subordinate shouted to his general that the enemies were already on all sides. The chastiser said that they had already lost a lot of people. The man issued a threat that whoever dares to leave, he will kill him on the spot. The soldiers replied that they would die, but they would protect the palace. The order was given to open the barrier. Then the team prepare for the archers, and then the command to open fire. Someone from the crowd shouted that the attacks were useless. The soldiers went into close combat, trying to stab with swords, but it was useless, so someone took to their heels. The general shouted that no one dared to run away. But the monsters didn't listen to him and ate the soldiers. Seeing the soldiers running, a huge something that attacked them and said, the attacker offered to join them and enjoy this wonderful feeling. One of the soldiers said that it was bad. He noticed that Huntan's strength was too strong. The general said that this was the end. They could not protect the heavenly world. There was no hope anymore. They're all going to die. But then blue ones appeared from somewhere above. Then a huge spear flew into the ground at high speed. Screams were heard from the soldiers who shouted that it was a legendary spear. The men were surprised by this because they were not sure that it existed. This meant that the god Arlen was still alive. Behind the spear, the god Arlen himself appeared with the former beautiful wolf with red stripes. God said they don't know the feelings of defeat. He didn't even think that Huntan's forces had penetrated almost the entire heavenly territory. I was surprised that all the defense was broken. The wolf told him to be careful because something was coming. And then, after a moment, the first insight passed a little. It became clear that it was none other than Master Buddha. This phenomenon also struck the soldiers. The warriors took heart because they saw that even Master Buddha himself had appeared. Now the soldiers knew that they definitely had a chance to escape. The god Arlen turned to Xiao Tian, his wolf. He asked that everything here was a porch and a lie, as he believed. But the wolf told him that his point of view was not correct. Then the soldiers saw that Master Buddha had folded his fingers and was preparing to attack. The men asked why he did it, but the god Arlen set up protection, saving the lives of the soldiers. Arlen asked the Buddha if it was really only with such small childish tricks that he decided to deceive his eye of truth. Therefore, god Arlen called to open the third eye, and also activated the heavenly earthly right and made an attack. The Wolf of God asked his friend to be easier, because otherwise he would have no one to play with. God said he didn't know who this Buddha was. However, he added that anyone who enters the heavenly territory will be punished by heaven. With a spear, he rushed at this Master Buddha and summoned the force to twist everything. God began to cut with a spear and destroy the impostor. He told him that such an inferior demon would not be able to replicate the golden body of Master Buddha. Then the wolf noticed that the spear plunged into the impostor and stayed there. It strained him. The wolf warned the god Arlen to be careful, something was wrong here. The body of the liar Buddha began to suck the spear inside. The wolf said that Huntan's strength was so incredible. He asked who he was. God Arlen said that the power was leaving him. It seemed as if the Buddha was absorbing it. Later, the man added that the demon revealed its essence. The wolf, watching this picture, told the demon to let go of the god Arlen or the wolf would tear him to pieces. But then I heard Arlen's voice, who ordered the wolf not to approach, saying that it was very late. Already almost completely absorbed by the demon, the man said that he finally understood the meaning of the missions of these demons, but why the gods could not win. God said he had a special task for Xiao Tian. The wolf was angry. He could not recognize him. He asked how a man could give up so easily. But the man told Xiao Tian to listen to him carefully. God said that maybe the wolf would be able to fight the demon, since he didn't have the power of God in him. Arlen recalled that the wolf was a demon that he found on Earth and took with him to the heavenly territory. That is why God had an important mission for Xiao Tian. This strained the wolf. He asked Arlen again what he was doing. But instead of answering, the man removed the seal from the wolf, adding that this is a huge demon power. Xiao Tian asked in surprise that the seal on his body had been removed. He laughed, saying that now he was free. His torment was over, and then he saw a huge stone fist break through the protective barrier of the upper world above him. Xiao Tian was sent through the gap in the barrier. After the wolf heard the words of his master that perhaps this is the only solution, the man said that the death of the gods would be known to everyone. Already remotely, Xiao Tian heard Arlen add at the end that Xiao Tian must definitely find a person who can change the fate of the three worlds. After a moment, a young man drowned in the water, who sank deeper to the bottom and thought that this was the end of his life. The guy has already resigned himself to such a fate, continuing to look at how the light is getting further and further away. He was not upset at such an end, because the person most dear to him is no longer there. Before the eyes of the guy flew pictures from his memory in which his mother was. But then the pleasant picture was replaced by a scary one, in which the car takes off from a steep slope, breaking through fences. His mother died, and he was drowning. Suddenly 2 hands grabbed and pulled up. He heard someone swear. He was pulled out by a girl who lifted the guy's body above the water, giving him air to breathe. She shouted that the depth of the pool is only 1.5 meters. The girl was telling him to stop pretending to be dead. The guy coughed and said he was just joking. Looking at him, the girl could not control her emotions and was very angry. They were helped out of the pool. Other students and their teacher immediately ran up to them. The teacher told him to go to the medical room as soon as possible and undergo an examination. The guy said he was fine. The man thought that he was unlucky. The teacher wondered why he was going to his physical education classes. Classmates whispered that the guy was obviously crippled. Why did he then continue to go to school? The guy didn't have an arm, just an iron prosthesis. The girl who saved him turned to the 2 hooligans. She asked them rudely if they had pushed him into the water. The guys got scared and said it wasn't them. Classmates continued to whisper. One of the crowd said that Su Yuer was like Bei Ming's personal bodyguard. Someone said that they had been friends since childhood. Classmates asked Bei Ming if he was really alright. They asked to be more careful, but Min said he was fine and thanked him for his concern. As Bei Ming walked past his classmates from the pool, he wondered if this show could be even more deceitful. He knew perfectly well that they were gloating and laughing at him behind his back. But the guy realized that he didn't care about it. He was already used to it. The guy remembered how he was bullied as a child by the neighborhood boys. They beat Min and said that he had no father, so no one would help him or save him. The moment of his telephone conversation with his uncle and aunt also surfaced in the memory of the young man. They said they were very busy right now, but added that they would temporarily take care. Bei Ming walked and thought that even with such problems, let the whole world fall on him, he would not give up so easily. The guy was passing by a sports field where guys were playing basketball. The ball rolled away from them and hit the leg of Bei Ming. The guy stopped and looked at him. The guys on the court asked Min to throw the ball to them. Bei said he would do it without any problems, and bent down to get the sword. But because of his prosthetic arm, it was impossible to take the ball. It slipped out. And then Bei Ming heard a voice above him, who was mocking and talking about whether it was the captain of their school basketball team. The guy laughed at him and asked what happened, why he couldn't take the ball. And then a mocking voice said that it was the former captain of the team. Raising his head, Bei Ming saw Lin Qi standing over him. The bully continued to laugh at the cripple. He asked why Min was still staggering and limping around the school. Lin Qi asked if Ming didn't know that he looked like a clown. The guy repeated what Lin Qi just said. This slightly angered the bully. He asked Bei Ming if he knew which trait Lin Qi respected the most. That trait was his unwavering tenacity. The guy added that now his persistence is just disgusting. He took the ball and hit Bei Ming's chest with all his might, asking him if he thought he was cool. Lin said that to survive such a tragedy, to lose an arm and a leg, and then come to school pretending to be a normal person, what is he trying to achieve? Does he still think that he will lead the team to victory in the championship, as he did before? But he told Min not to even dream about it. His life is over. Bei Ming listened to it all in silence. He thought about the fact that he already knows this. However, he thanked for the fact that in comparison with false sympathy, straightforwardness is more pleasant to him. After school, when Bei Ming was already heading home, it began to rain. At the gate of the school, he was met by Su Yuer, who was waiting for him under an umbrella. She asked Min why it took so long, saying that she was already waiting. The girl looked around the guy. Not seeing his umbrella, she asked where he was. I assumed that Min had forgotten the umbrella, so I suggested that he go together. While walking, Bei Ming decided to ask his girlfriend for something. He asked Wu Yuer to stop constantly defending him, saying that she stood out too much that way. The guy added that he was already used to their judgmental looks, but the girl was different, so she doesn't need to get involved because of him. The girl for this did not push him hard, but significantly in the back. Bei Ming shouted in surprise at this. He asked what she was doing and whether she behaved this way with all disabled people. The girl smiled sweetly, saying that unless her feelings are important now, Su Yuer told him to take care of himself first, and then they would talk. The girl remembered how he behaved as a child and defended her in front of others. She thought that even though the guy may be weak, but he is always ready to stand up for her. He was pulled out of his memories by Bei Ming, who went a little ahead. He said that if it was too painful to come to school tomorrow, it would be her own fault. Under the sound of rain, a girl could be heard running up to him and saying that she would give him a cheat sheet for tomorrow's exam and told him to take an umbrella. After some arguments between them, Bei Ming still took the umbrella and carried it all the time while the couple was walking. When they were walking through the streets, nobody's Bei Ming brushed the guy with his shoulder. The second one screamed, clutching his arm, that his arm was now broken. To this, Ming asked in surprise what had happened. By their appearance, he and his friend looked like hooligans. A friend of the victim grabbed the mine and said that the young man had broken his friend's arm. But Bei Ming asked if he didn't think faking an injury was a bit old-fashioned. Their third friend took out a knife and asked if he was too cool for such a brat. The bully said that it seemed to him that Min did not understand the situation, and he pointed the knife at the young man. Hooligans dragged a couple into a deserted alley. Bei Ming said he was sorry, but he really didn't have any money. The bully said it's not good to lie. One of the hooligans held Su Yu'er hostage with a knife to her throat. The man said that such a beautiful girl was hanging around him, he should have money. Bei Ming told them to wait. He asked the hooligans to solve everything with words. The guy said he would give them all the money, and in return the hooligans would let them go. One of them said that the train had left a long time ago. If Ming wanted them to let them go, then they would have to take off their clothes and go naked. It was a punishment for insolence. The girl wanted to object to something, but Bei Ming forbade her. He thought about the fact that all the hooligans were armed, so it was too dangerous for Yu'er. Bei Ming said he was willing to fulfill their conditions, but they had to keep their word. Laughing, one of them replied that it already depends on the mine itself. The young man undressed, and one of the hooligans asked in surprise, after examining him, what kind of style the guy had. He was like an Iron Man. Bei Ming asked if they could leave now, but then one man told them to wait. He checked the guy's wallet and he only had $100, but then one of them came up with an idea. He told his friends that his artificial limbs looked quite expensive. The one who was holding the girl asked what his friend was waiting for, saying that they were not needed by such a nobody. The guy was in shock. He didn't understand what was wrong with these people. After these words, one of the hooligans tore off the prosthetic arm of Bei Ming. Laughing, he asked the guy if he really thought that this would make him look like a normal person. Bei Ming involuntarily began to have tears in his eyes after such words and actions. Then everyone looked in surprise at how the knife that was held to Su Yu'er's throat flew past the face of the one who tore off his arm. Bei Ming's girlfriend wasted no time hitting the bully in the head with her elbow. This bully who was holding a knife flew back in a matter of seconds. Standing in a stance, she looked at the one who tore off his arm and told him to return his arm or he would suffer even more. The third bully gave a strong slap to Bei Ming, after which he flew to the bottom. Laughing, he said that his girlfriend was protecting him, what a loser he was. The bully lifted him by the hair by the head, saying that he was so pathetic and that in his place, he would rather die than live like this. Min through the pain told Yu'er to run away as soon as possible and escape, leaving him. Yu'er was indignant at these words of his, saying that how could she leave him. The bully who held him by the hair asked her, apparently this garbage is dear to her. Holding a knife to his throat, he told her to stand still, otherwise he would kill him. Su Yu'er said in a low voice that she would do anything, just ask not to touch him. After her words, one of the hooligans grabbed her hand and with the words that it would hurt, slammed the girl into the wall. Threatening her with a knife, he asked her how she was going to repay him. There were tears in her eyes. The bully swiped a little at the bottom with a knife, cut her school uniform, saying why not. Bei Ming, who was watching this, shouted at him not to touch her. Whoever was holding him stuck his head in the ground, telling him to shut up. The man, laughing, insulted him, saying that he was to blame for everything because he was so weak. Bei Ming said calmly that he was really useless. That's why he asked to be beaten. But in 1 second, the guy abruptly got up and hit the guy who was holding him with his head, saying that hooligans should not dare to offend the girl. The guy knocked out the knife with a blow. Taking advantage of the situation, Bei Ming ran and hit the second one who was holding Su Yu'er, shouting for him to let go of the girl. But then the guy felt bad. He saw that in his side, there was a second knife from the second bully. Coughing up blood, Bei Ming thought that after the accident he had lost hope for life, but Yu'er gave him strength. Therefore, he swore that he would protect her at any cost. He started to lose consciousness. The last thing he saw and heard was Su Yu'er running towards him and shouting for an ambulance to be called soon. The guy only thought that she was crying again because of him. Therefore, he thought that he really did not deserve to live. A moment came to his mind when, dying, his mother told him that he would remember that even if she was not around, then Bei Ming should live on. The guy recalled how he shouted that they would definitely survive both, asked his mother to give her a hand, asked her to grab it. He asked mom to move, but she only said that she was very sorry that she was leaving him and her son was suffering such pain. She said he should move on while hope was alive. The woman asked her son to promise her that he would live on, and then there was a huge explosion. The next memory was the operating room. One of the doctors said that this child survived such a serious accident. He urgently needed surgery. He thought that it was very difficult to fulfill the promise to his mother. The guy remembered how he was learning to walk again with the support of Yu-Er. The girl helped both physically and verbally, saying that Min could do it all. The guy thought about who would tell him what to do next. Here a huge ray of light descended from the sky, which was rapidly flying to the place where the guy was now. The beam hit the ground with a huge light, raising dust and illuminating everything around. Su Yu-Er shielded herself from such a bright light that lit up the entire alley. She called on Min, worried about him. The guy was screaming and glowing with a bright red and yellow light. The hooligans looked at what was happening in surprise and asked what was going on. One of them saw Bei Ming arched and shouted. He told his comrades that this guy was running into trouble again. Meanwhile, the barrier surrounded Bei Ming. His wounds began to heal, highlighted with a bluish color. And then the hooligans were scared when they saw that a huge wolf's head appeared over the guy. The young man himself was enveloped in a bright red flame. Fangs protruded from his mouth, and his eyes glowed red. One of the hooligans asked Min to stop, but Ming only got down on one knee on the ground, placing both hands on it. One of his hands, where the prosthesis was torn off, was partially restored. Then one of the hooligans, the one who tore off the prosthesis, screamed, clutching his arm. He screamed that he couldn't feel his hand. The bully asked what Bei Ming had done to him, but there was no answer. The man decided to run away, shouting for help on the run. The third bully, who was least involved in this situation, raised his hands when Min looked at him. The man said that he had absolutely nothing to do with it. The man also ran away, shouting that he would never bully again. And after that, Bei Ming turned his attention to the third bully, but then a surprise awaited him. The third man asked who the guy was and where he got the power of the Great Tiangu. At this, Ming only ignited even more and went for the bully. The man asked to wait, saying that he was also a demon like the guy. To prove his words, the bully changed his skin color to red, releasing his true appearance. His clothes were torn in places, and one horn appeared on his head. The bully began to justify himself, saying that it was just a misunderstanding. He pointed his finger at Su Yu-Er and said that this girl is only his, Mina, and no one else. The bully thought to himself that the guy's demonic energy was too strong, so it was best to give up. Bei Ming walked past him without even looking. The bully thought that he was saved and he was forgiven. But then a wolf's mouth appeared, which devoured the man. Ming, still engulfed in flames, walked towards Yu-Er. A red haze stretched from the corner of the guy's mouth, and his eyes burned with red fire and were empty. It's like the guy's not conscious. The girl was trembling. She was frightened by the way her friend looked now, and also by the fact that the wolf's mouth was still flashing behind his back. Bei Ming leaned very close to her, almost touching her cheek with his nose. Yu-Er shrank in anticipation. Opening her eyes, she, crying, asked him what had happened to him and was happening now. But there was no answer. Min was also looking at her with empty eyes. But then he opened his mouth, full of sharp teeth, and spilled out a terrible long tongue. The guy reached out to the girl. Still crying, Yu-Er called her friend by name. The moment of his conversation with his mother surfaced in the memory of the young man. The woman then told Xiaoming that she wanted to take him somewhere in honor of his birthday. As it turned out, his mother brought him to the temple. Bei Ming asked her why. Instead of a festive dinner, they came to this temple on the other side of the world. Mom told him not to complain, but to sit and pray. A little later, the woman told him that Ming was very weak in infancy. Therefore, his mother often came to this temple for the blessing of the Buddha. She said that now Ming was as healthy as an ox, so it was time to repay the Buddha. The woman ordered to go inside the temple and pray. In his thoughts, the guy thanked God, saying that it was very difficult for his mother to raise him alone. Therefore, he wants her to be healthy and safe. After finishing the prayer, he left the temple. Mom said that now they will come back and celebrate. Bei Ming remembered how happy he was about it. Then the next scary picture, as they fly off the mountain, breaking the fence. A huge explosion. At that moment, the guy was thinking about why God was so with him. Why did he do all this with Min? The guy wondered how he deserved it. Then Bei Ming heard an angry and loud voice behind him. He told him that Min did not even know who the gods and Buddhas were, but demanded blessings from them. Min turned around, asking who was there. And then he saw the huge head of a wolf, from whose mouth smoke with fire was pouring out, and his eyes were blazing with a scarlet flame. The wolf told Min that besides, his so-called god is no more. The guy again asked the question who this wolf was. The monster told him that Bei didn't need to know his name because the guy would be his food. And the wolf opened its mouth, intending to swallow the guy whole. He covered himself with his good arm, defending himself and asked not to touch him. But then Bei Ming woke up. He saw a white ceiling, his arm, a catheter to the top of his hand. The guy sat up in bed. He realized that he was in the hospital. Scratching the back of his head, the young man said the smell was too familiar to him. He realized that the monster was just a dream. But then a huge white wolf with red stripes all over his body came out from behind the screen. He looked at the guy and asked what he had done. Hearing and then seeing him, Bei Ming shouted that there was a monster and hid under the blanket. But this angered the wolf even more. He shouted so hard and loud that the blanket flew off the mine. The wolf asked him again what the guy had done to him. The wolf hovered over the guy, putting a huge paw, which was the size of Min's head. The frightened young man shouted that he didn't know that he hadn't done anything to him. The demon said it was impossible. He explained to the guy that he had lost his physical body. He also added that his divine power was attached to the mine. This angered the monster. The wolf tilted his muzzle close to the guy and told him that if Min didn't tell him the truth, he swore he would bite his throat out. Bei Ming turned white. He shook his head and shouted that he was carrying his apologies to the demon. But the guy honestly told him that he really didn't understand what the monster was telling him. Min tried to convince the wolf that he really didn't know anything. The wolf angrily waved his tail. He exhaled and told the guy that he was too worthless a person to do such things. The wolf angered Young Giant in this, and then the wolf wondered what Young Giant had asked him to do. But the demon could not remember what kind of request it was. The beast thought he didn't care about that. The monster turned to Bei Ming again, telling him to remember that he would wipe out all creatures from the face of the earth. And he promised to leave the guy for dessert. Looking at Bei Ming's face, he thought that he could not miss the opportunity to feast on the human world, and then he would take care of heaven. Jumping out of the window, the wolf told him to get his neck ready and wait for him. The wolf did not manage to escape far. As soon as he left the ward, gold chains flew out of the window after him. They wrapped around the animal's body, and a collar snapped on the neck, which surprised the wolf very much. Turning around, the beast saw that the chain stretched from the very window from which he had just jumped out, and then he was pulled back by force into the same window, into the same ward. This action surprised the demon even more. The wolf fell to the floor of the ward and saw that the chain had shortened and was burning with a bright light. He realized that this energy was nothing but a spirit seal. The other end was reaching for the chest of the guy in the bed. This circumstance surprised Bei Ming himself. The wolf wondered who this kid was, how he could have such power. The wolf crouched down and summoned hellfire around him. He grinned and asked Ming how he was so worthless, was able to seal him, the wolf, divine power. Bei Ming screamed and grabbed his head, saying that she was sick. Images of the past day surfaced in his memory. He saw in front of him a girl pressed against the wall, who looked at him with frightened and tearful eyes. Ming remembered how he realized that Yu'er was in front of him. He remembered hitting the wall near her head, asking himself what he was doing. He saw nothing. Only the thin voice of a girl who called him by name and asked him to wake up came back to his memory. Abruptly, the guy opened his eyes, saying that he remembered. The young man looked at his feet in horror, realizing that he had eaten Yu'er. The guy threw up on the floor. The wolf came up to him and asked if the young man was talking about the girl in the alley. Then, smiling, the wolf added that the girl's taste was excellent, and licked his lips. Bei Ming was even more sickened by this. The monster decided to explain something to him. He said that since he was overthrown into this world, and then immediately captured by the mine and lost his body, he was very hungry, so he immediately ate the girl. And he asked Bei Ming if she was really so dear to him. The guy sat in silence for a minute, ignoring the wolf's question. And after that, Bei Ming covered his eyes with his hand and burst out laughing. The wolf thought that the boy had some kind of mental disorder. The guy shouted his question to God, why is he mocking him? The guy was angry at heaven for taking away all the people dear to him, but sparing his life. Then, in a low voice, he added that he didn't even have the right to cry. Then Min turned to the wolf. He asked the demon who he was and how strong he was. The guy asked this looking without fear at the wolf, which was twice as big as him. The beast was surprised by such a question. He asked Min if he really didn't know. The wolf said that he went through 18 levels of hell to devour Yan Luo, the Chinese god of the underworld. He added that he would eat anything he didn't like. After listening to him, Bei Ming asked him. Judging by his words, the wolf was dangerous to humanity. Growling, the wolf told him that the threat was universal. The guy asked if it was true and went to the window. The astonished demon watched as the young man moved to the windowsill, throwing his leg. He asked Min what he was doing and why he got there. But Bei Ming didn't answer. He stood on the windowsill at full height and looked down. The wolf came closer to him. Turning to the beast, the guy said that he was right. The wolf is afraid of his actions. The guy lifted the chain slightly, showing it to the wolf. He said that this strange chain, the seal of the spirit, seemed to bind them together. The wolf got angry, growling. He shouted so that the brat wouldn't piss him off. He threatened the guy that he would eat him in no time. But Min was no longer afraid of him. With a calm face, the young man told the wolf to stop bluffing. The guy clarified that if this dog wanted to, he would have eaten it long ago. The wolf thought that this guy sees right through him. The demon thought that if the young man's body dies, then his divine powers will disappear. But he was angry that this pathetic little man called him a terrible demon, a simple dog. The wolf started shouting about how the guy dared to behave like that. With a smirk on his face and arrogance in his voice, the guy asked, because the wolf was so evil and omnipotent, could absorb everything he wanted, and now he is tied to him. The demon growled angrily and breathed heavily, and at that moment, Min had already come out on the windowsill from the street. The guy thought that life had lost its meaning for him, and if he dies now with this demon, then at least in this way he will bring some benefit to the world. The wolf immediately changed his tone and behavior. He turned into an obedient and diligent dog. The wolf told him that life is beautiful, smiling as much as possible. After hearing his speech, Bei Ming thought for a second. The demon added that he was just joking and that he was not a demon at all. The wolf said that his name was Xiao Tian, that he was Lan Shen's companion, the heavenly guardian, the arbiter of justice. Bei Ming still took a step, flying backwards down. The wolf flew after the man, trying to grab him. The guy relaxed, realizing that people dear to him died because of him. He was ready for such a finale, so mentally asked Yuer for forgiveness. But then several ribbons flew past the wolf, straight to the guy's feet. They wrapped around the guy's healthy leg and his torso. Opening his eyes in surprise, Min looked at the web that wrapped around him. The fall of the young man was cancelled. The web gently and slowly lowered him to the ground. Once on the asphalt, he heard a female voice that called him like a brother. Looking up, Min saw a beautiful nurse with glasses. The girl threatened him with her finger and told him not to do that anymore because he was a good boy. The guy noticed that the same web stretches from her veins. Bei Ming sat down on the floor and asked the girl who she was. The wolf next to him looked admiringly at the girl. She came up to him and gently took his cheek. The girl stroked the guy's face and said that he smells very delicious. Why should he despair so much? She came close to his face, sticking out her tongue, intending to lick it. Min blushed. She asked him if it was possible to waste someone like him. The guy thought about what was happening now, and tensed up. The wolf thought that there was something wrong. He knew the smell. The girl told him that for his behavior, as punishment, she would eat a mine. And after these words, the girl's mouth opened into a huge demonic mouth. Seeing this, Bei Ming immediately pushed the girl away and jumped back, saying that it was another monster. He touched the table next to the bed. Scissors fell off it. The wolf, watching this, shouted at him to use scissors. The guy wondered what kind of scissors the demon was talking to him about. But then he saw that the girl was already close. Bei Ming pinned her with his legs, trying to somehow defend himself. But the monster was already starting to eat him, biting him with its sharp teeth. And then he heard the voice of the wolf, who told him that he meant to stab the monster with scissors, and not the pose of scissors from the legs. Min realized that he had really made a mistake and done wrong. He began to fumble on the floor with his hand to find scissors with which he could defend himself from the monster. The guy kicked the monster, knocking him down. But the girl wasn't going to give up so easily. She grabbed his arms and threw him on his back. The monster told him he was too naughty. The girl hovered over him. She told him not to be afraid. His sister would make him feel good. And the monster began to strangle him. And Bei Ming couldn't think of anything better than grabbing a girl by the hips. The wolf, seeing his pathetic attempts to escape, told him that even in such a critical situation, Min tried to approach the girl. Min shouted for the wolf to help him. Min shouted that he didn't want the monster to pierce him. And the wolf really saw that the girl had huge spikes protruding from her back and lower torso. The guy began to lose strength. He thought that he could no longer resist. The young man realized that he was about to die. And then he realized that he wanted to die. Bei Ming realized that the instinct of self-preservation infuriates him because it tells him to resist. He thought that it would be better to let him eat it quickly. But the wolf was unhappy with this arrangement. He saw that the guy decided to give up and dropped his hands, so, cursing at the guy, he asked what he was up to again. The young man just smiled at this. The wolf growled at the girl, ordering her to let go of Bei Ming. The monster stopped, turning its attention to the wolf, but did not let go of the guy. The demon also continued to growl at the girl, asking her how a little thing like her dared to touch his prey. The girl said that the famous Lord Tiangu himself was in front of him. Laughing, the monster said that the demon had finally decided to give voice. She thought he would just keep standing there. Growling at her, the wolf told her that even though she knew his name, she still dared to behave so disgustingly in front of him. The girl sat up, slightly releasing the guy. Laughing, the monster said that as a wolf, he could still consider himself a great demon who keeps 3 worlds at bay. The girl said that since the wolf surrendered to that Yang Jiang, he became an ordinary chained dog of heaven. The girl assumed her usual appearance, but she did not get off the Bei Ming. The wolf growled at her, asking her how she dared to look down on him. He rushed to attack her, saying that he would tear her to shreds. But the girl easily dodged, blinding the wolf. The wolf froze, looking in front of him. He wondered what it was now. The wolf at this moment thought about why his attacks didn't work. He realized that it could be because of the mine. The demon girl was laughing at the wolf. She asked him if he really thought she would risk coming here without any preparation. Monster explained that she had overheard their entire recent conversation. The wolf hadn't figured it out yet, but apart from the connection with this guy, the wolf was also losing his demonic power. The wolf began to shrink even to the size of an ordinary dog. The wolf thought about it. He realized that at this rate the boy would suck all the demonic forces out of him. She told him that it was a huge success for her. The girl added that one has only to think about eating this boy and his divine powers. The girl laughed again. She will be able to appropriate Lord Tiangu's strength as her body burns like hell. The wolf thought that it was outrageous. He was thinking that his great name would be tarnished by this loser and preoccupied demon. At this time, Bei Ming woke up. The guy raised his head, and he saw a woman in front of him. Min thought he was already in heaven. But then he saw again that terrible monster tongue that was trying to devour him. He realized that he was still alive. This arrangement did not suit the young man. He shouted at the monster, asking why he was still alive. The guy asked not to waste time, but just to do it quickly. The girl told him not to worry. She promised that her sister would take care of him. But then something happened that was not expected. The girl was hit in the back with an apple. She turned back to ask who dared to interrupt her meal. And the monster saw a girl who was holding another apple in one hand. The girl was the same Yu'er. She said that Min was an idiot, but he didn't care what she called him. Bei Ming's eyes lit up. He was glad that she was alive. The guy thought that how could Yu'er be here, because he thought he had eaten her. Min turned his head to the wolf, who, avoiding his gaze, turned his muzzle away from the guy. The guy realized that this dog had deceived him. Meanwhile, Yu'er was angry. She told Min that she had bought fruit on purpose and had come to visit him. And then a lot of apples flew into the monster girl and the guy himself in a whole queue. During the shelling, the girl shouted that Min had arranged role-playing games behind her back. The monster decided quite differently. The girl rose above the guy and began to turn the body towards the girl. She rushed to the attack, saying that if Yu'er became a witness, then she would be her snack. Yu'er saw a girl running towards her in an attacking pose. Nina's friend didn't understand who was in front of her. She thought it was a cosplay. The monster grabbed Yu'er's shoulder, intending to suppress as well as Ming. However, the girl was not timid. Yu'er swung her leg, hit the monster, depriving her of orientation and stability. The monster flew away from her. Yu'er turned to Bei Ming and said that Ming didn't think that she had such specific tastes. The guy pulled his hands to the girl, trying to justify himself. At that moment, the monster woke up. The nurse wiped the blood from the corner of her lips. Smiling, the monster said that Yu'er is such a little girl, but has so much power. However, this time she won't be lucky anymore. With these words, the monster released spikes from its back, and also released claws like a spider. Yu'er looked at the nurse in horror. She quietly asked what it was in front of her, and then one of the spider's paws hit the girl on the cheek. Laughing, the monster said that she should have felt the same pain as the monster a minute earlier. Behind the monster, Bei Ming was sitting on the floor. He shouted for Yu'er to run away from here because it was too dangerous here. But she failed to do this. The monster, with the help of its web, grabbed the girl by the throat, pinning her to the wall. The web began to strangle Yu'er. The girl resisted. At that moment, the monster had already come close to the girl. She pointed one of the claws at Yu'er, saying that the little sister would not resist and kill her. But then the monster felt something poking at her back, bringing pain and distracting attention. Bei Ming shouted at her to let go of the girl and repeated, "Let go," driving scissors into the monster's back each time. But the monster just pierced one of the guy's paws, telling him to shut up. Coughing up blood, the guy looked in surprise at this paw that was right through him. Coughing, Yu'er looked at her friend with horror. The monster told him not to worry. She explained that she had not touched important organs. The monster explained this by saying that she did not want the guy to die so easily. Before the eyes of Bei Ming was a terrible picture. He coughed and sank to the floor. The guy reflected that he was now experiencing despair, pain, impotence, and anger. The wolf rejoiced near the guy's body that he had a desire to live. The demon approached the guy and said that if he wanted to live, then he had one suggestion for Bei Ming. Bei Ming opened his eyes and looked around in surprise. There were a lot of skulls around. It was dark and gray. Only the moon was shining. He wondered what kind of place it was, really hell. The guy was angry. He again complained that everything had not turned out the way he had planned. But the most important question was different. The young man is alive or dead? A wolf appeared next to him, which was engulfed in flames. He told him that Min, being human, doesn't value his life. Even insects are constantly trying to survive. The demon called the guy pathetic again. The wolf said he had no idea how the guy had sealed him and entered his mind. But that wasn't so important right now. The demon said that at the moment, the fact that their lives and deaths are interconnected is important. Then he added that from now on, the life and death of Min is their common cause. The wolf explained to him that Min had absorbed a lot of his powers, but would not be able to control them without him. Therefore, if the guy wanted to survive, then he needed the help of a demon. He asked the wolf if he wanted to devour all of humanity. Bei Ming said he wasn't stupid enough to endanger the world with a monster. This angered the demon. He stepped over himself to unite with such trash as Min, but he dared to reject him. This angered the demon. But now the outbursts of rage did not frighten Min. Smiling, the guy told him that the stronger the wolf, the more valuable his life. But the life of the guy opposite is not worth a penny. Looking straight into the eyes of the beast, the guy said that they would never cooperate. But smiling impudently, he added that the demon must obey him, no matter what. The demon thought that this kid had outsmarted him. The wolf understood that there was no choice but to obey him in order to survive. Therefore, he ducked his head and said that they had agreed, bowing slightly. This alerted Min. The guy asked the wolf why he agreed so quickly, but the demon told him that if they did not hurry, they would both die. And they returned to reality, all in the same ward with Yu and the monster. The monster girl looked in surprise at the place where the guy was lying. She wondered what kind of demonic power had just been. Meanwhile, Bei Ming approached the monster. His lost hand took the shape of a wolf's paw. The guy said that no one had the right to hurt Yu and put his hand on the monster's shoulder. It was just a blow from which the demon girl flew off to the opposite side of the ward, leaving a cloud of dust in its place. A part of the claw from that monster was still sticking out in the guy's chest. He would put his good arm around Su Yu. There was a red haze of fire around the mine. The guy looked at his hand, which looked like a paw. He was surprised that such a simple blow had so much power. Smiling sweetly, the guy told her in a caring voice that Yu should move away from this place, and he promised to deal with the monster. The girl said that he was wounded. In response to her remark, the guy took out a piece of the monster's claw with a demonic hand and said that everything was fine with him. Yu shouted that this was not the case. She called him names and told him that it was impossible to pull out the claw like that, because in that case Ming could die from blood loss. The girl clutched her head and began to wail. What should she do? What should she do? She said that if Min dies, she won't love her, so she won't get married. The girl started crying and poked her finger into the guy's chest, saying that it was all his fault. She asked him what she should do if he died now, but Bei Ming asked her to calm down, saying that she was not herself. He was still holding that claw in his hand. But then the wolf looked surprised and annoyed at Min. The guy caused such a reaction by asking Su Yu whether to return the claw back, and pointed to the hole in his chest. With a wolf and a girl shouted that it was not necessary. Approaching the guy, the wolf told Min that his demonic powers had stopped the bleeding and had already healed the internal wounds. Therefore, everything is already fine with him. Bei Ming was surprised to ask if everything the wolf had just said was true. The guy looked at his chest and saw that the wound really wasn't bleeding anymore. The demon added that the guy should remember that this is only 1/1000th of his strength, and if he obeys meekly, then the demon will give him a little more strength. He looked reproachfully at the wolf and told him to repeat which of them should obediently obey. The demon laughed, saying he was joking. The demon thought to himself that he just needed to be patient while he recovered and destroyed this spirit seal. The guy will pay for this later. Glass and stones flew at the guy, which he easily threw away with his hand without injuring himself. The monster said that she didn't think that Lord Tiangu would spit on honor and give strength to a kid like Ming, just to save his own skin. She crawled to him like a predator to prey, saying that this arrangement is even better, because when she eats him, she will become a very powerful demon. But the guy was not confused. He thrust into her open mouth the very claw he was holding in his hands, telling the monster to eat his paws, and prepared to fight. The guy kept shoving a claw into the monster's mouth. He added the demonic power of the wolf and, breaking through the wall, pushed the monster out. Bei Ming realized that there was a lot of strength in the new hand that the wolf powers had given him. The guy thought that now he would definitely be able to teach a lesson to the very bully who offended Yu. and he was going to run in search of this bully. But he was stopped by the voice of the wolf, who told him to stand. And then Bei Ming saw, in the place where there was a hole from the monster's body, a web was now stretched. The guy threw fragments of bricks into it, which flew into small pieces, cutting against it. The guy said he didn't even think it was that sharp. Min said that he seemed to be too carried away because of this new power. I was so lost that I almost fell into a trap. Then, next to him, the same claw that the guy had previously pushed into the monster was cut into the floor. The demon girl herself appeared, who said she was sorry. She added that she thought the guy would immediately fall into her web. But Bei Ming walked up to the web and stretched out his new hand to her. He grabbed the web and said that he was no longer the same person he used to be. Therefore, now such a trifle as her web will not stop him. The demon girl told the guy not to impersonate the Almighty just because of Tiangu's powers. She wanted to say that the guy would never be able to break her web. But Min did it. He easily broke her shackles. The monster screamed in surprise, asking how the guy did it. She said that her web is made of heavenly threads. But then they heard the orderly screaming. He apparently asked the second one what the noise was on the 16th floor. An order was heard to urgently call security. The girl thought about it. She realized that if she wanted to continue living as a human, then she couldn't let them see her true form. She decided to reincarnate. Mocking her appearance, Bei Ming asked if she didn't want to devour him. The guy continued, asking why she was hesitating now. Really scared. The girl has already assumed the full appearance of an ordinary nurse and said that Min was happy early. She told him that there are still a lot of demons in the world that he attracts. The demon ran to the window in the corridor and broke it. Already at the moment when she jumped out, the girl told him to enjoy the rest of his short life. Bei Ming asked if the girl was serious. The wolf told him that as far as he knew, the girl was not lying. He added that there are many demons living in this world. Min asked the wolf if this meant that they were in danger with him. He explained that creatures like this girl would die before they could even touch them. The wolf was thinking that the three worlds are in balance. Therefore, the demon understood that it would be possible to get rid of demons in this world easily, like a harmful insect. However, this dark energy of chaos that emanated from the human world caused the wolf to have a bad feeling. His thoughts were interrupted by Bei Ming, who, calling the wolf a dog, said that he had lied to him. The guy explained that the wolf told him that Ming had eaten Yu'er, but Min was interested in what really happened. That's the question he asked the demon. The wolf snarled at him again, telling him to show him at least a little respect, because he was a 1,000-year-old great demon. But the wolf did not tell why the girl was alive. He understood that he could not tell such a shame. The wolf remembered how at the moment when Ming pressed the girl against the wall and was about to eat her, Yu'er shouted for the guy to wake up. Following her words, the girl struck a mine between her legs, thereby disarming not only the guy, but also the demon. The wolf remembered how the guy and the wolf were writhing in pain on the ground. His thoughts were interrupted by Min, who asked if there was anything else that the wolf hadn't told him about that situation. The demon assured that there was no more. The fact that the demon was nervous didn't escape the guy. However, the demon was unwavering. He said he wouldn't say anything, but let him ask the girl. At night, Bei Ming stood on the balcony and pondered. He was thinking that he could not trust the powers of this wolf, but he decided to put these feelings on the back burner for now. Right now, the guy was thinking that he wanted to see how much the remaining characteristics had improved. Down at the stadium, a large group of people in costumes were dancing with fans. Nin looked at them and realized that he, being almost a kilometer away from them, clearly saw their faces. The guy concluded that his eyesight had improved. The demon asked Min what he was doing. The beast said he wasn't in the mood to sit here and look at the stars. Min told him that he was testing his abilities. This angered the demon, and he asked how Ming dared to test his strength. Therefore, the wolf added that the young man did not look down on him. Bei Ming turned his head to him and asked what the wolf even knows. The guy said that comic book superheroes always test their abilities before using them, so it was a must. He explained to the wolf that he must know what he can do in order to use these skills correctly later. Then Min noticed something below. The wolf also came to take a look. He stood up on his hind legs and looked down, asking what the guy was looking at. And then the wolf saw the same thing as the guy. As in the house opposite, 2 floors below their height, a beautiful girl was taking a shower. Both the demon and the guy began to stare at her, rejoicing at such luck. The girl finished taking a shower, wrapped herself in a towel and looked sharply in the direction of the observers. Both the wolf and the guy sat down behind the fences, averting their gaze. Laughing, the demon asked Min that the young man was really afraid of such a trifle. Wolf added that women's sixth sense is stronger than he thought. Bei Ming told the wolf not to equate him with himself, calling him an old dog. Therefore, the guy stood up again, saying that he would test his abilities further. And after these words, Min climbed onto the balcony railing. This scared the wolf. He swore and asked what the guy was up to again. Instead of words, the young man jumped backwards. The wolf remained on the balcony, but the spirit chain reappeared between them and pulled the animal down. While the demon was flying, he shouted to Min that he had an unhealthy love of jumping from a height. Bei Ming ignored it. He closed his eyes and concentrated. The guy heard a female voice gently addressing someone with a question when he would get divorced. The man replied to the girl that her request would be fulfilled soon. He explained to his companion that he was dealing with the issue of property, did not want to leave money to his wife. Still continuing to fly, Min heard a dialogue in a car that was standing at a traffic light. The man, a taxi passenger, asked the driver to go a little faster. Analyzing this, Min realized that he could hear people talking from afar. The guy realized that his hearing has become more sensitive and must have other abilities too. Opening his eyes, the young man abruptly grabbed the lamppost with his new hand, avoiding that it crashed on the asphalt. He decided to test his capabilities again. Therefore, while also continuing to hang on one arm, he swayed and did 2 somersaults. Min noted that dexterity and fortitude, apparently, also pumped up. When Min was on the ground, a wolf fell flat next to him. The same couple of lovers who were discussing the divorce were passing by at that time. The girl screamed and grabbed her man by the arm, saying that Min had scared her. The man calmed his companion, saying that he was nearby and everything was fine. Then he turned to Min and said that the guy had scared his baby. Indignantly, the man asked what the guy was doing here. Min turned his head slightly towards him, but then turned around completely. He smiled and told the man to call him the Lantern Man. But then the man somehow strangely fell silent, looking at the guy. The man thought that the guy was probably a student of their school, but he was an invalid. Min also thought about the fact that he had already seen this man somewhere, since he seemed familiar to him. The man reminded Min of his dean, and the realization of this was reflected on the guy's face. Min wondered what his director was doing here. The guy also realized that the man had just seen what Min had done. After examining the couple, the guy remembered that the dean did not have such a young wife as he remembered. But then who was the girl who was now so gently hugged by a man? Ming smelled something. He raised his hand, sniffing his armpit, trying to figure out if it was from him. The girl who was standing next to me said that the young man is very nasty. Min turned his head to the woman. The smell was from her. Coming closer to them, he apologized to him for not being so smart in class. The guy also asked them to relax and apologized for bothering them. The dean was only thinking at that moment about why Min stumbled upon him and whether the guy heard what the man was saying. And then Bei Ming said something that shocked the couple. He explained that he could smell another man from her body. He added that the dean is a good person, so he told him all this so that the man would not let himself be deceived. The girl got angry. She insulted Min by asking what he was talking about, but the dean quietly and harshly told her to shut up. The man was afraid for his reputation. However, Bei Ming was no longer interested in the couple. He smelled a different smell with his renewed nose. This smell was something burnt. The guy started turning his head in search of him. At that moment, the woman who was with the dean broke away from his embrace and walked away, telling the man not to meet her again. The dean ran after her, but the girl quickly left. This angered the dean. He wanted to say everything to Bei Ming, but turning to the side where the guy was, he didn't see anyone. The place was empty. The man clenched his fists, thinking that Min had ruined his evening. Therefore, the dean will not forgive him. At this time, a few kilometers from the meeting of Min and Dean, a taxi was flying at high speed. It was approaching just those people who were dancing with fans. The driver honked, attracting the attention of people to get out of the way. The passenger who was sitting next to the driver asked him to slow down. The driver told him that she was pressing the brake, but it seemed to him that the brakes had failed. The taxi crashed into a concrete wall right in front of the area where the band was dancing. The car overturned, and it began to fall on people. But then the onlookers noticed that something red was flying very quickly through the crowd. People wondered what it could be, and one young man in a wolf costume stood empty-handed and could not figure out where his helmet had gone. This something was Min, who grabbed a wolf helmet from a guy on the run, put it on himself and ran with it on his head. The guy realized that speed was added to his new skills. The demon wolf was flying on a chain. He was not happy about such an event again. Min stood in front of this group of people who froze in horror and could not escape, watched as the car flew at them. He used his enhanced strength and got under the car, pushing it away from the crowd. The car turned over and landed clearly on the wheels. From the wave created by the car lowered to the asphalt, the wig of one of the men who was closest to the incident was knocked down. People on the playground, sidewalk, as well as the driver and passenger, all looked with surprise at the man with the plush wolf head. There were whispers in the crowd. Someone shouted in surprise that a man with a funny helmet stopped the car. Someone suggested that it was a movie being shot. Bei Ming forcefully yanked out the car door and asked those who were there if they were all right. The passenger said that everything was fine with them. He added that safety is first and foremost, so it's good that they were wearing seat belts. Ming then walked over and picked up the wig that had come off the man earlier and put it on the man. He told the man that this uncle was the best dancer I had ever seen. The man thanked him and asked who he was. Min said that no one went. All the dancers and onlookers thought about what the guy meant by that. Everyone started filming. The onlookers who came up again asked what had happened here. Was the shooting of the film over? And someone said that yes, it was really over. Bei Ming smiled and happily went about his business. The next day, morning, Bei Ming walked through the college courtyard. The students, as usual, were whispering behind his back. Who saw him? Someone said that their former captain of their basketball team was here again. Another person said that Ming was really stubborn. Someone else with the company said that it was a pity if not for his absence and leaving the all-round sports school, they would have been transferred to a key secondary school. The second person in the same company said that Ming was very unhappy then, but when I think about it, he still felt sorry for Ming. The third told them to be quiet. The wolf that walked next to Min looked at him maliciously. The guy looked at the demon and asked what he was looking at. The demon replied that he was congratulating him for ignoring their conversation. Laughing, the beast added that it looked like the guy had deliberately broken his limbs. Min got angry at this. He stretched out his hands to the wolf and asked if he wanted to try what it was. The wolf immediately retreated, saying that he did not want to try, but was just curious. Min ordered him to shut up in that case. The surrounding people did not see the demon, so for now, Bei Ming was talking to an empty one. Therefore, one of the students asked his friend if he had accidentally hit himself. Then they all started when they heard Su Yuer's voice behind them. The girl asked them what they were talking about there. The guys amicably decided to run away from here, because the girl had the fame of a cruel woman. But one of them said that Min was hiding behind a woman's skirt. The wolf asked Min if he could kill these guys for him, but Ming told the demon not to use this power, because now it would be too much. He added that the guys were right, he had to be responsible for his actions. The demon said that he sees that Min has a kind heart. This angered the guy, but he said that in general the wolf knows. The guy added that he wasn't that good. Yuer turned to him. He immediately became kinder and told Yuer not to misunderstand him. The guy explained that he wasn't talking to her. Bei Ming said he meant what was going on, that he knows what kind of person he is and knows what's going on, so why worry about the opinions of others? Besides, hadn't the girl been by his side until now? The girl blushed. She said she would like to ask him for it. Where did this power come from and does it hurt him? And whether she needs to accompany him to the hospital. Scratching the back of his head, the guy told her that everything was fine. He asked Yuer not to worry. The guy asked her if she could see that he was fine. About the strength, the guy thought about it. He thought about not letting Yuer get into trouble because of him. He wondered what he should do. The guy couldn't find an excuse to tell her how he got the power. Ming couldn't tell her that he took a dog, and this dog gave him strength. Is Yuer really going to believe this? But Mina was saved from answering by the raging crowd, who shouted that the exam results were a few days later. The guy pointed to the gathering and said that the test results had come out. He offered to go and see. Yuer wanted to start protesting, but Min, pushing her in the back, led her to the stand. The guy said that this test is related to the willingness to report. Therefore, the girl had to take it more seriously. She wanted to be indignant again, but the guy told her to go look, and he would come later. The girl turned her head to him and said that she agreed. Bei Ming watched her go and exhaled. The guy thought that it was very close. He almost opened up to her. The wolf laughed, watching this picture. He called Min a weak chicken. The guy told the demon to leave him alone. Min told the wolf to go do business. The wolf said that they are together because of the limits of the soul lock. Bei Ming laughed at him, saying that it was all because the wolf was just a little dog. The demon got angry at this. He insulted the guy and asked him if anyone had taught the guy respect for elders. The demon said that he has already lived for hundreds of thousands of years. But Ming calmly replied to him that he was a human, and the demon was a dog. So he asked what the wolf's age might be. The demon answered how the young man could know about it. But Ming only asked where the evidence was that the wolf lived longer than the guy. The wolf told Min to look at him, clarifying that he was more than a guy. And the demon added that he believes that if Min loses him, he will cry like a little girl. Without his power, Mina can be devoured by any demon at any moment. Therefore, the guy should be grateful to the demon for giving him a chance to live. Laughing, the wolf added that he was, so to speak, the reborn parent of Min. But the young man listened to him with half an ear. He quickened his pace so that the chain tightened and dragged the wolf after him. To To this, the demon told him that shouldn't it be so that the child respects his parents. He added that Min was an ill-mannered child. Bei Ming walked up to the very stand on which the results of the exams were hanging. The wolf asked where the young man's name was. Min told him that the lower right, and then the demon laughed when he saw where Min was. He told the guy that he was the last one all the time, so the wolf thought that Min's head really broke. Bei Ming answered him rudely, telling him to shut his mouth. The guy explained that he failed the exam precisely because he was hospitalized, and it's all because of the wolf. But the demon did not lose his head and asked the guy if he would go up how many places if he took the test seriously. Bei Ming thought about it. The guy understood that if he had not been hospitalized due to a car accident, he would not have had delays in rehabilitation training. To the wolf, he replied that if it weren't for these few problems, he wouldn't be in last place. The demon asked if the guy was serious about this. There were whispers from the crowd. Someone said that Min had big hitches, and someone asked how many times the guy was in last place. Then the guy heard someone call his name. Turning around, Ming saw that it was the dean he had met yesterday. The man ordered the guy to follow him. Behind the guy who was standing and listening to a man with glasses on the bridge of his nose, a crowd of teenagers gathered. One of the guys is mocking Bei Ming. He sees that the school teacher, who is known for his cruelty, will not leave the guy alone. He found another victim. Another guy, who had dark hair, says that he felt sorry for Bei Ming at first. The man crosses his arms behind his back and thinks about the fact that he heard a very familiar cough. He turns to the guy and says that the woman he saw in the evening is actually his distant sister. The man says that it is better for Bei Ming not to talk about her to students and other people. He asks him to forget about this woman. The man bends down and, looking menacingly from under his glasses, reminds that according to school rules, Bei Ming must pass 3 exams. The guy never passed any of the exams. The man asks the young man if he knows what he is entitled to for this. The man shrugs it off and says that the teacher asked him to give Bei Ming another chance so that he could continue studying at school. The man with glasses says that as long as he does not tell what happened last night, he will be able to find a way to keep him from leaving school. Bei Ming bows sharply and thanks the teacher for his kindness. The teacher falls into a stupor for a moment. The guy thinks that usually the teacher wants to get rid of Bei Ming the most. He wonders why the man at the moment decided to pretend to be a good person. The man is still stunned. He says that the guy should prepare for the upcoming exam. The guy still doesn't get up. He asks why the director is so interested in last night's event. The man immediately begins to get very angry. He doesn't understand why a guy needs to know such information. The guy scratches his head. He asks if the teacher was the one he saw the day before near the house. The man doesn't know what to say. He asks the guy to move on. Bei Ming leaves, and the director looks at his back. The man is very angry because the guy pretends to be stupid. The director is discouraged. He doesn't want to be in the same building with this guy. The director decides that when all this is over, sooner or later he will find a way to get rid of the young man. The guy leaves with his white dog. The animal asks why the young man is so worried about staying in school. The dog says that the guy needs to leave school and take a deep breath. He asks why go to school at all. In his opinion, the guy would be better off if he followed the demon to conquer the world. The guy asks the dog to think better. He says that the dog has lived for hundreds of thousands of years, but he talks about the world as a bandit with terrible ambitions. Bei Ming turns to the dog and seriously says that school is not just a place for him to study. The guy looks gloomy. He says he's been through a lot. The only thing the guy has learned is that he cannot bow his head to difficulties. Bei Ming says he can't give up. He has nothing, so stepping on, step by step, he will make his own way. The dog looks at Bei Ming's back, grinning at the same time. It turned out that Bei Ming is much stronger than he thought. The guy walks into the teacher's room. A woman with glasses is addressing him. She asks why he didn't come to class the other day. She leans over and wonders if it's because of a recent incident that all this is happening. The guy blushes, agreeing with Tian's teacher. The woman asks if the guy is okay. Bei Ming replies that he is already better. The dog suddenly begins to suspect something. He watches the guy and feels that something is wrong here. The woman smiles and says that usually you need to pay attention to rest. She asks the guy to take care of himself. As for training, she advises the guy to take a break to rest. She promises to help him. The guy scratches his head and thanks the teacher. The dog immediately guesses. He understands that Bei Ming came to the school to look at the beautiful teachers. The dog is interested in why the guy is smiling, because he was very sad recently. The dog assumes that Bei Ming does not know what shame is. The dog thinks it makes sense. He assumes that the guy has estrus, but the dog sniffs the girl and does not notice the strange smell. Bei Ming notices that the dog is sniffing the teacher and starts to get angry. He asks what the dog is doing. He asks him to show at least a little respect. The The woman gives the guy a sheet and asks what he thinks about it. Beaming looks at the sheet and realizes that this is an application for a re-examination. He asks how the director could have signed it. The woman says she had no choice but to apply for reconsideration within the next 2 days. The teacher says that Beaming should carefully consider the application and ask questions that he may have. The woman comes closer to the young man, puts her hand on his shoulder and asks him to behave culturally. The guy blushes and thanks the teacher again. The woman says he can go to class first. The guy says goodbye and leaves the office. The guy asks the dog why he was sniffing the teacher. He warns him not to approach the teacher again and not to do anything like that. The dog starts to get angry. He asks the guy again about what he just said. The dog says he is a lord who has been training for thousands of years. He had never been interested in a human female. The guy is a little dumbfounded. He points his hand in the direction of the office and says that the dog behaved very strangely. The dog is indignant. He says he didn't plan anything this time. He says that if a guy cares so much about the teacher, then he should be careful. He feels a strange anger in the teacher. The guy asks the demon what he wants to say. The dog says that Teacher Tian is human, but her breath seems to be surrounded by some evil spirit. The woman is really surrounded by a very evil spirit. Her aura is so dark that a bird from the street flies straight to her and crashes into the window. Beaming looks seriously ahead. A demon appears before him, who is going to attack him. The guy notices that something is shining from the side and he decides to cover himself with his hand from the light. He wonders what's going on, and then notices a car coming his way. The guy finds himself in the middle of the road. People sitting in the car scream in fright when they see someone on the road. The guy opens his eyes wide. There is a flash and he, opening his eyes again, realizes that he is in the classroom at the desk. Beaming remembers that he went to the office and then fell asleep right before the exam at his desk. He's been having strange dreams lately. The guy is scared because he heard the cawing of birds from the street. He shifted his gaze to them. All the birds were looking right at him. A strange dark aura emanated from them. The guy, watching the birds, felt a strange anxiety. He wonders why he has such a bad feeling before the exam. The building is already dark. Someone is walking down the corridor. A teacher comes into the office. The guy immediately reacts to it. The man asks the guy why he is so surprised, because he oversees all 6 subjects that the guy has to retake. The teacher will personally observe, so he asks the young man not to even try to deceive him. The man becomes gloomy and says that if he discovers a deception, the results will be immediately annulled and destroyed. The principal says that Beaming should not blame the teacher for not being able to give him a chance if he fails. The guy raises his hand and with tears in his eyes says that now he can get individual attention from the teacher. The guy tries to convince the teacher that he is very touched. He asks the teacher to rely on him, as he is not going to deceive anyone. The man tenses up. He is unhappy that Beaming is starting to play the stupid guy again. The teacher hits the table with both hands and says that these words are enough. He decides it's time for them to start. Time is passing. The guy hears only the loud ticking of the clock. His head starts to hurt because of this sound. He asks what kind of sound it is. Then the sound only gets louder. The cawing of birds is added to it. At the moment of a strong ringing, they all jumped down from the tree and flew high. The guy understands that this is all a school bell. Beaming remembers that he shouldn't be so loud. He thinks he hears so well because of his enhanced hearing. The guy covers his head with his hands and realizes that he feels very strange. It was during the exam. At this time, a teacher approaches him and asks what he is doing. There is very little time, so he should hurry up and not be distracted from the test. Beaming decides to forget about the ringing of the clock. He thinks he probably just fell asleep too late last night. Also, the guy assumes that he was a little irritable before the exam, which is why he feels a little strange. In any case, the guy understands that the exam is very important. He should not be distracted by all sorts of oddities. The guy remembers that over the past 2 days, Yu came to his aid, so he has nothing to worry about. Beaming, with the help of his super memory, will be able to do all the tests that he must pass very quickly. The guy sits and does not understand what he needs to do. He looks at his sheet, and then drops the pen on it and starts screaming because he doesn't remember anything. The guy buries his face in his hand. He thought that all attributes were increasing, but as it turned out, this is not how it works. The director knocks on the table with his hands and asks Beaming to behave quietly at the desk, as the exam is underway. He says that time is running out, so the young man must finish his work. The guy replies that everything is fine and that he is finishing work. The guy thought that the received power also gives intelligence, so he took it seriously. Beaming is trying to set himself up for work. He says that stabilization is a technology. He decides that in this case he can rely only on himself. The guy starts writing to answer the questions in the test. Half an hour passed, but Beaming continued to write. Then another 20 minutes passed. The guy wrote until 11 o'clock. The teacher approached the guy and took his answer sheet. The guy gets gloomy and thinks that, fortunately, he is not stupid enough to pass at least some subject. The guy remembers the last story, the one in which he is least good. He definitely finished it himself. Beaming has prepared a plan for this case. The teacher looks at the guy and does not understand what is happening. He wonders why the guy didn't put the pen down before he gave up. The man notices that Beaming looks determined to pass the exams. The director wonders why he is not trying to cheat. The man abruptly approaches the Beaming with a chair and sits down directly opposite the young man. The teacher folds his arms over his chest and stares at Beaming. He is sure that the guy is trying to challenge him. A man will notice any trick of a young man. Beaming is straining. He wonders why the director sat right in front of him. The guy hopes that his dog will come to him soon. Exam time is coming to an end. Birds on the street begin to call loudly and crash into the window glass. Beaming turns around and asks what's going on. One of the birds crashed very hard into the window. The guy gets even more scared. He wonders what's going on at school. He begins to guess that all the oddities were not accidental. The guy started looking around. He saw a dark and strange aura begin to spread throughout the office. The guy looks at the window where the bird that crashed into the window was just now. Beaming asks the director if he feels something strange. The man turns to Beaming and demands that he stop talking nonsense. He says it's better for the guy not to try to play him. The teacher says that even if the school building collapsed, he would still be sitting in front of him and writing a test. Suddenly, a sound is heard all over the school, and the next moment everything starts to rumble and shake. The guy looks gloomy. He wonders what's going on. Is it really an earthquake? The teacher also feels the rumble. Someone's voice is heard over the loudspeakers of the school, informing that the gym building has collapsed for unknown reasons. At the moment, the school is taking all possible measures to save. A voice over the loudspeaker tells all teachers and students to stay calm. The teacher wonders what happened in the gym. Beaming points with his hand towards the exit from the office and asks if the teacher is going to go and see what's going on. The man asks what he needs to watch. He demands that the guy stop worrying so much and do his test. The teacher informs that there are only a few minutes left before the end of the exam. He says he won't be late even if he goes there after he finishes conducting the exam. Beaming thinks that the teacher really puts a lot of effort into giving the guy more problems. The guy grunts questioningly. He notices that it has become cool in the office, but summer is coming soon. It gets very cold around the teacher and the guy. A haze rises. The guy wonders why it's getting cooler. The guy thinks it's too weird. He decides it's better to go home early with Yu-Er. He still has a bad feeling. Beaming's pencil breaks due to tension. The guy starts to worry about Yu-Er. The guy gets up from his seat as he remembers that Yu-Er is currently having a gym class. The teacher looks at the student who stood up abruptly and notices a prosthesis instead of a hand. He guesses that the guy is disabled. The teacher asks the guy what he is going to do. He wonders if the guy is going to leave the exam. The man turns his attention to the answer form. Then he advises Beaming to think carefully, so that the guy does not blame the teacher for everything later. The man reminds that if he passes an empty form, he will definitely be excluded. The guy is silent for a few seconds, and then turns to the teacher and, pointing to his hand, asks him to look at the money he lost. The guy says he found them on the floor. The man does not understand what kind of money we are talking about. He asks the guy to let him look at them and asks Beaming not to joke about him. The guy snaps his fingers, which is why the washing gum, which he gave out for money, began to bounce off the walls of the office. The teacher speaks negatively about the guy. He says he has no money in his hand. Then the man says that it's better for Beaming to take the exam seriously. He reminds the guy that this is his last chance, so he shouldn't think about how to slip away. Unless, of course, the guy wants to be excluded. During the teacher's moralizing, the eraser that Beaming threw bounced off the wall and headed towards the man. The eraser strikes the man right on the neck. The teacher gets sick. He rolls his eyes and falls backwards. Beaming catches the teacher's body with his hands. The guy apologizes to the man while holding his body. Beaming puts the teacher's body on a chair and asks him to sleep for a while. He is afraid that this time the problem may not be an ordinary earthquake, but something much more serious. The guy runs out of the office and thinks about the exams. Exams are not the most important thing at the moment. Beaming can't let fate take its course. The most important thing right now is Yu-Er's safety. He should hurry to the gym to check if she was okay. The guy runs out of the classroom and notices something strange. A strange dark aura was spreading throughout the school. Beaming stopped. He began to think about what was going on at school. Suddenly, something began to form on the wall. The guy saw how bodies began to appear from strange clumps. Monsters appeared right in front of Beaming. They were very tall and faceless. They were smiling broadly. The guy asks them if they are the reason why the gym collapsed so suddenly. The guy demands that the monsters quickly get out of his way, since he doesn't have time for them right now. The monster smiles silently. Behind him, a voice calls out to Beaming and asks what he is doing. The guy turns around and notices the dog. He asks him why the dog has only returned now. He tells how long he has been waiting for him. The dog begins to get indignant. He grins because the guy still has the strength to make accusations. The dog says he risked his divine soul to find answers to his test in the teacher's office. The guy sighs and apologizes. He says he was too worried. Then Beaming asks the dog if he could find the answers. The dog replies that he could not find the answers to the test. The guy swears because it was his only chance. The dog asks the guy to forget about the test. He says that right now they have absolutely no time to worry about the exam, since the monsters are already at school. The guy starts to look around and notices that the corridor has become clean and there were no monsters nearby. The dog assumes that all the monsters have escaped. He adds that this is not the most important thing at the moment. He asks the guy to look out the window. Beaming doesn't understand why he needs to look out the window. The guy goes to the window and asks what he should see. Beaming sees in the window a huge monster with tentacles, over which a purple sphere hovered. The guy gets scared and asks where such a big demon comes from at school. The dog says it's not a demon. He adds that if it was a demon, then everything would be much better. The dog tells that in fact it is a deity. The guy is amazed that a deity appeared near the school. He asks the dog if he is sure that this is a deity, because even the guy feels evil coming from him. In that case, how can it be a deity? The guy asks, besides the demons that come into their world, there are also deities. The dog says that this is not surprising, because there are many heavenly deities. They came to this world no matter what, breaking all the heavenly laws. Since ancient times, most of them have been hiding under false names. The dog says that the deity in front of them not only revealed his identity, but also infected with an evil aura. He suggests that such an outcome of events should have its own reasons. The guy asks what the reasons are. The dog tells that the heavenly deities have pure divine powers to protect themselves. They would never be infected by evil spirits so easily. The dog suggests that it may be the energy of chaos, which has already invaded the human world. He thinks that something is obviously wrong, since he does not feel the energy of chaos on the deity. The dog also notices that the evil aura smells the same as the evil aura on the teacher that he sniffed before. The guy asks the dog to stop with the reasoning. He asks if the place where the deity stands can be the place where the gym is located. The guy suddenly realizes that the culprit of all this may be a deity that appeared in their human world. The guy understands that everything is going very badly. He takes off and runs to the gym. He says he has to get there faster so that nothing happens to Yu-Er. The dog asks the guy not to worry, as they cannot defeat the deity with their current level of abilities. The deity began to howl. The dog asks why this howling. The guy assumes that the deity is in pain. Something crunched in the deity's sphere. A connector similar to a cross appeared. Then this connector expanded and the deity roared even more. A dark liquid poured out of it. The guy looks at the deity with disgust and asks what he could have eaten, since he vomits so much. The deity was very ill. It was swinging from side to side. At some point, parts of his body began to evaporate. The guy noticed that the deity was beginning to disappear. The dog is watching all this and also does not understand what is happening. The dog looks at this incident and remembers the case when he helped Beaming to look for answers. He felt something on the school campus. It seems to the dog that the problem lies precisely in the school itself. The deity disappears completely at this time. All that remains is smoke and the wreckage of a destroyed building. People in black suits and glasses gathered near the destroyed building. They block the way of ordinary people. One of the students is going to dial a number on the phone, but a man in a black suit and glasses snatches the phone out of his hands. A man with glasses reports that they are forbidden to make phone calls, as the school will soon sort it out completely. The guy demands that his phone be returned to him. He asks what the man meant by talking about phone calls. He asks what is wrong with calling specialists to rescue people. Another student asks who the men with glasses are and why there are so many strange people around their school. The student points out that the man with glasses is not going to save people and also does not allow them to help. He asks how to understand this. Students begin to be surrounded by men in black suits. One of the students asks what they are going to do. The man with glasses says they won't do anything, but they shouldn't think about going anywhere anytime soon. Someone runs past the men in suits very quickly, shouting Yu-Er's name. They don't have time to stop him. Beaming shouts to be allowed to pass. The guy manages to grab the men in black suits. Beaming tries to break free and, reaching out, he shouts that Yor is still in the building, so he needs to go in and save her. The men do not let him pass and say that he is not allowed to be in this place. Men in black suits lay the guy on his back. They shout for him to step back, as they are in charge of this place. Beaming starts to get angry. He asks what they are doing. He demands to be allowed to pass. One of the men notices the guy has a prosthetic arm instead. He wonders if the teenager is disabled. Suddenly, Beaming breaks out and shouts that he will get to Yor. Someone pushes the guy in the back. A man with glasses puts a guy on his back and says that he should not act rashly. He assures the young man that they will cope. He asks if the guy understands this. The guy shouts that there are not even basic tools for rescue in this place. They're not even going to save people. One of the students asks if Beaming doesn't want to live anymore. The guy goes up against formidable men, which greatly affects his classmates. Another student says he doesn't even dare to breathe in front of these men in suits. They're just students, how can they contact them? A student with dark hair raises his hand up and shouts to Beaming not to be afraid to resist. He speaks negatively about men in black suits. They should be ashamed, since Beaming is a student with disabilities. Suddenly, all the students made a fuss. They started shouting that this place is a school, so the men in suits should leave. One of the men demands that the students be silent if they want to continue living. Someone's sigh is heard from the side. Beaming grits his teeth. The man with glasses notices that the guy has become stronger. Someone is calling the guy. Next to him is a dog. The dog tells Beaming that he agrees with the guy's wishes, but it is impossible to cope with men in black suits without his strength. But using your powers in front of everyone is very dangerous. The dog continues and says that if the guy uses his powers in front of all people, then he will not be able to stay at school. Therefore, the guy should think carefully. The guy says that now is not the time to think about it. If something happened to Yor, then there's no point in him staying at school anymore. A man with glasses watches Beaming and wonders if the guy is talking to himself at the moment. Then the man feels something. There is a strong explosion and flash. Everyone is wondering if it's an earthquake. Dust has risen, because of which they cannot open their eyes. Someone's clawed paw appeared right on the spot of the flash. Beaming is already going to attack at speed. He thinks that Yor will have to wait for him a bit. Men with glasses are wondering what kind of sudden earthquake just happened. To cause such a strong explosion, you need to use a lot of force. They assume that it was arranged by Beaming. The other man says it's just not possible. A student with a prosthetic could not have caused such an explosion. He tells the other men to be vigilant. Suddenly, a silhouette appears in the smoke. The man stretches out his hand to reach out and catch the young man. But when a man's hand reaches a young man, it passes through him. The man is confused. Beaming appears behind the man. The guy hits him on the neck. The man does not have time to react. The other man sees something strange. He asks his partner what's wrong with him and what's going on. This man also does not have time to react, which is why he misses the Beaming blow right in the stomach. The guy is hiding in the smoke. He has to hurry up and get all the other people out of consciousness. He can't let them get in his way. Sounds are heard in the smoke. The guy copes with everyone who meets on his way. He notices that there are 2 more people left. A man stands with his partner and asks him how some high school student manages to cope with all of them. The man who is standing behind him pulls out his weapon and asks his partner to just watch how he copes with the Beaming. His partner asks him to put away his weapon. He reminds them that they are at school. He asks how the man is going to explain to the boss if he injures someone. The man reminds them that their task this time is to warn, not to stun someone. He asks him not to make it worse. The man pulls out a taser and says that it will be enough to solve the problem. The man notices that his partner does not answer anything. He asks him if his partner can hear him. He also asks the same question. Then Beaming appears right in front of the man. He grabs the man by the head. The man tries to hit the guy with a stun gun. The stun gun hits electricity right on the guy's neck, but he stands and doesn't even twitch. The guy asks if this is really all a man can do. The man with glasses is shocked. He wonders how this is possible. He hit him right in the neck. How can you be okay after that? The man asks the young man who he is. The guy says he's just disabled. He copes with the last man in a black suit and glasses. Beaming runs through the destroyed building. He asks Xiao Tiantian how things are going. The dog is angry. Of course, he asks the guy to talk to him more politely when he is going to ask him for help. But the dog does not like this name, so he asks him not to call him that anymore. The dog says he's already checked the whole area. 15 students are buried under the rubble. All of them are breathing heavily. But their vital signs are normal. They have not received serious injuries, and if they are not pulled out, they may suffer. Then the dog says that something else is bothering him. namely, that the evil aura that continues to pour out from under the rubble does not stop. The guy says that they need to take care of the students first, and then about the evil aura. In his opinion, salvation is much more important. They don't have time to wait for rescuers. The guy says that even if he has to dig with both hands, he will dig up all the students. Beaming tries to calm down to focus his attention and feel his breathing. The guy concentrates and feels something. He fixes his gaze on the wreckage, and then runs up to the right stone and picks it up, throwing it aside. The guy starts digging the ground. Students go to the noise. They want to know what's going on and where such a loud noise is coming from. One of the guys is worried that this could be a second collapse. He is angry because they just stand there and do nothing. The second student says that they can't do anything about the fact that the building is collapsing due to an earthquake. Beaming is trying to lift some kind of stone. He feels that the students are somewhere below him. He uses all his strength to lift a heavy stone. The guy manages to strain very hard and lift the stone. He holds it in his hands. The dog looks at the young man and realizes that he is really giving his all. The stone he was able to lift weighed at least 10 tons. The guy tries to lift the stone even higher. He lifts it up to the level of his shoulders and sees Bei Ming right under it. The girl says his name. Then the girl looks at the guy with tears in her eyes and asks if it's really him. The guy smiles at her and asks her not to be afraid. Beaming is next to her and he is going to save her. A medical aid car drives up to the collapsing gym. All students pay attention to her. Students notice the director. They ask what he is doing in this place. The director was supposed to have a meeting. The director says that as soon as he heard the news that the gym was collapsing, he immediately hurried back. Silhouettes began to appear among the smoke. Students who were healthy carried those who were injured during the earthquake. One of the girls points her hand at Beaming and says that he really was able to save everyone. The students immediately started discussing the appearance of Beaming. Many could not believe that such a thing was possible. One of the guys remembers how Bei Ming couldn't walk properly. How was he able to save people in this case? Another student points out that they needed to see Beaming break into the center of the devastation without hesitation. He thinks they should praise the guy for his courage. Medical workers carry away the injured students on stretchers. The principal thanks Bei Ming on behalf of the teachers and students of the school. The guy rubs the back of his head with his hand and says that the director misunderstood him. He only wanted to help Yu-er. Yu-er was covered in wounds and bruises. While the guy was helping the girl up, she asked what happened to his strength. The guy replied that there was no time to explain yet. He says that first we need to save the rest of the students. The guy says that his abilities should be kept secret. He doesn't want anyone at school to know that he has powers so as not to create unnecessary problems for himself. The guy turns to the girl and says that maybe all this destruction of the gym happened because of him. The girl was thinking that since Bei Ming is reluctant to speak, there must be a reason for this. She decides she won't ask him about it again. The director puts his hand on Bei Ming's shoulder and says, whatever happens, he has heard from everyone about this situation. The director says that even if it was difficult for the guy to move, he threw himself into the wreckage to save people. He believes that this determination is commendable. All the students start clapping. A voice is heard saying that the director is really right and Bei Ming is very brave. All the students apologize for their spiteful behavior towards Bei Ming and congratulate him. The director asks the students to calm down. He says that the school has been renovated. He suggests that the incident was caused by a leak of construction personnel. The director claims that there were no serious casualties. He makes a promise that they will seriously think about it. The director also says that people in special uniforms are professionals whom they invited. He asks all students for forgiveness for the conflicts they created at the scene. With the help of clapping, a dark-haired man attracts attention to himself. He says that all the students listen to the principal's explanations. He lets everyone go home, convincing the students that the school will deal with the consequences of the incident on its own. The dog notices that the principal has the same evil spirit as the teacher the dog sniffed. It seems to the dog that there are other secrets hidden in this school. He can't see it because of the evil spirit, but that's what the dog wants. A high concentration of evil energy can be used to enhance his demonic power. The dog thinks that maybe he will be able to discover the rest of his abilities. Beiming approaches Yu-er and asks why she didn't go to the hospital. The girl was helping another student up at that moment. She says she has a small bruise. The guy starts to get angry. He tells her that no matter what, she should go to the hospital to get checked out. Beiming is going to go with her. Yu-er agrees anyway. The girl who was helped by Yu-er says she is lucky to have such a guy who takes care of her. She asks at what stage of their relationship. The girl is embarrassed and, turning to Lin Lin, says that she and Beiming are not in a relationship at all. The guy asks the girl what happened and why her face is so red. The girl at this moment looks at the guy and thinks that Beaming really cares about her. The girl begins to feel even more embarrassed. She says she's fine. She feels that the guy feels love for her, but it seems to her that their relationship is more like a brother and sister. This is more than enough for a girl. The dog comes up to the guy, calls out to him and says that they can't leave yet. The guy asks why. The dog replies that this is not the end yet, so they should not lose their vigilance. The dog squints and asks if the young man noticed that the deity spat out. The guy thinks about it. He asks to let him think. The guy remembers that he really felt weak breathing. The guy still remembered how the deity spat out something very similar to a monster. The dog confirms his guess and says that the demons have not yet left the school campus. Although the dog does not know the intentions, but he knows that if they ignore and leave everything as it is, then many people at school will suffer. The guy looks at the dog and asks why he didn't say this before. He can't leave everything as it is. The guy turns to Yu and says that she will go to the hospital first. He's going to do something and come to her hospital. The girl asks where Bei Ming is going. The dog is watching all this. He didn't expect this guy to have such a simple side too. The dog thinks about justice and compassion. It looks like the dog will be able to take advantage of human weaknesses next time. The dog shouts to Beaming to wait for him. A white-haired girl was watching the school from the height of the building. She knows who Bei Ming is. A guy and a girl are sitting near a fountain. The guy assures the girl that everything is fine. He tells the girl that if something had happened, he would have rushed to save her. He asks her not to worry about this incident at the gym. The guy wants to kiss the girl. The girl is shy. She says they are on school grounds, so it's dangerous. Maybe someone will notice them. The guy again asks the girl not to worry. It's already evening. It's too late. There is no one in the school who could notice them anymore. The girl gets up from her seat and, smiling, asks the guy to wait for her. She's going to go to the bathroom. The girl runs away, and the guy waves after her. He starts blushing, thinking that Lai Lai is very cute. He is glad that he can date her. The wind is blowing outside. The fountain is still working. A very long time passes, but the girl never returns. The guy is still waiting for the girl near the fountain. He wonders why she never came back. The guy hears some sounds from the side of the building and thinks it's Lai Lai back. He approaches the corner of the building and, showing himself from behind it, asks why she has only returned now. The guy notices the red eyes of the girl who were staring at him motionlessly. The guy goes into shock and does not finish the last sentence. The girl who turned into a monster says she agrees to a kiss. She asks the guy to come up to her so she can kiss him. The guy gets scared of the monster and is going to run away. But the monster catches him and asks why the guy is running away. Didn't he want to be the first one to save her? The monster screams, saying that she is in pain. The guy starts crying and reaches out with his hand, asking the monster to let him go. A blonde girl casts a spell. Ice shards appear, which fly straight into the monster. They strike the monster, which causes him to start screaming. The monster asks who dared to strike him. A blonde girl steps forward. She says Lai Lai was absorbed. Looks like she's late. She speaks negatively about the monster. She says that the monster even has to borrow a body to talk, and yet he tries to find out her name. The girl uses all her strength and says that ice and snow will be the last thing the monster will see. The monster recognizes the girl. He asks if she is the queen of this school, Muru Zu. The monster didn't expect her to look so cool and elegant. The monster directs its tentacles towards the girl. They hit right into the wall of the barrier that the girl created. The girl understands that apparently these are the last words of the monster. She uses magic to collect a water ball from a fountain in her hand, freezes it and creates a sword for herself. The girl holds a sword in her hand and says goodbye to the monster. She's going to use the Winter Abyss to win. The monster asks the girl if she is a night hunter. He didn't expect a student like her to be someone from the Youngmin house. The girl gets into a fighting stance, and then brings the sword forward and begins to move towards the monster. She quickly strikes the monster, cutting it into pieces. When the girl lands on the ground, she hears the monster screaming in pain. Ice fragments fall on the girl. Beaming was running towards the sound of a struggle at that time. He asks what could have happened. The demon's breath suddenly disappeared. It seems to the dog that someone has made the first step for them. The guy guesses that besides himself, there are other people with unusual abilities at school. The dog says that there are already demons and deities in the human world. It is not surprising that there are people with unusual abilities. It is very difficult to tell who is an enemy and who is an ally. It seems to the dog that there is another obstacle ahead of him. The guy says he doesn't care who the enemy is. As long as their goals match, they can take him to their team. The dog points straight ahead. A blonde girl stands over the defeated monster. Then he sees how the ice forces deal with the remnants of the monster. The guy turns to the girl. She looks into his eyes. Beaming doesn't recognize the girl, so he asks who she is. The dog says that Beaming forgot everything too quickly. The guy looks at the girl and is silent. The dog is watching the whole scene and does not understand whether the guy is pretending or not. The girl puts her hand on her side and says that the guy smells like a demon. However, she thinks it's not worth mentioning. The girl says that after learning about the fact that the guy saved many students, she was originally going to let him go. The guy is wary, and the dog looks attentively at the girl and thinks about why he does not understand what the girl is saying. The girl squints and says that Beaming is still unlucky. He found out her secret, so he will have to be eliminated. The girl lunges and tries to hit the guy with a sword. Beaming bounces back at this moment, managing to avoid a direct hit by the sword. He asks if the girl is in her right mind. The guy starts to get angry. He asks who the girl is. Beaming still can't remember her. The girl raises her hand and sharply directs it down, charging the attack. The floor is covered with ice, and the Beaming lies near the place where the attack was just directed. The guy shouts, asking about what the girl is going to do. He says she is quite adept at the method of cutting off the human bloodline. The girl tries to strike again and says that Beaming is behaving very brazenly. The guy jumps and shouts for the girl to wait a second. The girl very quickly makes swings of the sword, trying to touch the guy, but he manages to dodge. Beaming asks the girl to calm down. He suggests that she talk calmly and resolve the conflict. The girl stops. She frowns and thinks that the guy can really dodge her attacks or he's just lucky. Then the girl looks at the guy's chest and notices a weak spot. She strikes, screaming that it's over. Beaming manages to put his hand on the weak spot and hold the blade of the sword. The girl is stunned. She doesn't understand how the guy managed to stop the attack with his bare hands. Beaming has a student passport in his hand, in which there is a photo of the girl and her data. The girl's name is Muruzu, and she is in high school. The girl opens her eyes wider as she is shocked that the guy found out her personal data. Muruzu jumps back. She gets into a defensive stance while the guy is standing with a student passport in his hands. The guy puts his hand to his chin and says that he did not expect to meet someone like him. The girl is tense. She doesn't understand when the guy managed to pick up her student passport. The guy knocks his fist on his hand and says that now he understands why she was so angry and wanted to attack him. Beaming turns away and remembers Muruzu's name. He says she was known as the ice goddess of their school. The girl is also an influential figure in their school, but the guy had heard rumors about her, and he really hadn't seen her before. The guy assumes that he could not recognize her. That's why she's mad at him. Beaming believes that he is not mistaken. The girl stood silently all this time, and the dog asks if the guy's brain was eaten by a dog. Then the guy gets serious. He turns his gaze and says that the girl was not so weak. He admits that he underestimated her. Then the guy turns completely to look at the girl and notices that it has become cooler outside. The girl stares into Beaming's eyes and says that he forced her to release her true powers to fight him. The dog feels strange breathing. He's on his guard, and then he realizes that it is the breath of King Nu. The girl began to rise high, and behind her a huge ice stone with a snowflake inside formed. The guy covers himself with his hands and asks the dog what else is King Nu, who she is. The dog replies that King Nu is the god who is responsible for the cold and snow. The guy swears because he angered a girl who turned out to be a god. He could not have predicted such an outcome of events. The girl still stares at the guy and, pointing at him with her hand, says that she will put an end to him. King Nu pulls out his sword, gets into a fighting stance, and then uses all his strength to summon the ice dance of the snowstorm. The guy looks at the girl dumbfounded. Then an ice fragment flies straight into his eye, from which he manages to dodge. A huge ice attack is flying at the guy. He falls on his back and asks King Nu to listen to his explanation. A new attack flies at the guy and he swears again. He asks Xiao Tiantian to help him. He has to come up with a way out of this situation. He asks the dog what to do. He calls the dog by name several times, but he does not answer him. The guy, dodging attacks, asks the dog if he hears him. The dog says that there are more than enough evil deities appearing out of nowhere. He asks how it happened that people can have divine power. Xiao Tiantian thought deeply. He says this human myth is too crazy. In such a situation, when the information is not connected, it is too unprofitable for him. The dog raises its paws and tries to think of something while Beaming dodges the attacks and asks the goddess to spare his life. He says he's sorry. The dog suddenly starts screaming. He asks the guy why he still keeps dodging and what he's afraid of. He tells the guy to get up and attack. The guy runs straight to the wall. He climbs up the wall and shouts for the dog to attack his head. The guy runs straight up the wall while the ice attack is trying to overtake him. He runs almost to the very top. Beaming asks the dog if he doesn't know that the guy is always soft and gentle towards girls. The guy bounces off the wall and does a somersault backwards, dodging the attack. The girl raises her hand and uses her icy abilities again. She says that if a guy is weak, then he should stop making excuses for himself. The girl attacks again and says that now she wants to see how long the guy can dodge her attacks. The guy smiles and says that King Nu has not understood him yet. The guy fights off all the attacks. Ice fragments are flying back towards King Nu. Then the guy takes turns destroying the ice blocks that were flying at him and turns out to be right in front of the girl, who is scared because of the surprise. The girl glares at the guy. Beaming begs to be spared. He claims that he is really a good person. He also adds that he is at school to get rid of the demon. The guy raises his index finger and, winking, says, as for the demonic energy on it, as well as its abilities, these are everyone's personal secrets. The guy asks the girl to be more lenient to each other. Beaming decided to act coolly and aggressively. The girl is going to attack again. She asks the guy not to talk nonsense. The tip of the sword is a millimeter from the young man's face. He looks at the sword in fright. The girl is unshakable. She stares into the guy's eyes and says that a demon is a demon. The girl makes a strong swing of the sword and is going to attack the guy in a jump, shouting that all the demons should be dead. When the girl strikes, Beaming manages to put a block. Then they both hear someone screaming. The girl and the guy turn around to understand what is happening. They notice the monster, who is laughing at the top of his lungs. The monster says he can't let the night hunter get in his way. The girl looks dumbfounded at the monster. She thought that she had already dealt with this monster, but he appeared right in front of her again. The victim, who was inside the monster's body, began to make sounds that were similar to grinding. The ground shook and rumbled under his feet. The monster began to get angry and says that human beings are still trying to fight the deity, knowing about the failure. The girl does not understand what kind of deity we are talking about. The guy is amazed that another deity has appeared. It was on this day that he had a lot to do with various deities. The dog wonders if it's not the breath coming from the monster. The guy asks if the dog knows anything about it. The dog confirms his words and says that it is a Naga who swore to the guardian king of the west, Virupaksha. He says that during the ceremony of his birth, he was called by some name that the dog can't remember. The guy asks the dog to be serious. The dog squints and says that it looks like the monster has already turned from a snake into a dragon, but he can't figure out where his head is in this case. The girl raises her sword and says that whether it is a deity or a demon, as long as it harms the world, it must leave the world of the living. The girl swings for a blow, concentrating all her strength, and strikes a slashing blow, landing on the ground. When the girl is down, the blade of her sword breaks. King Nu is amazed that her blade broke so easily. Apparently, this monster has very tough scales. The girl feels like they are trying to attack her from behind. One of the monster's tentacles is really swinging at her. King Nu manages to put the ice shield right in front of her, deflecting the blow of the tentacle that wanted to attack her. The tentacles still destroy her shield and the fragments fly straight at the girl who is trying to cover herself. The girl does not believe that this is really the limit of her true divine powers. She realizes that the limit of her strength, after all, is exactly that. The level of her strength will not be equal to the level of the forces of a once familiar girl. King Nu remembers someone who is of great importance to her in life, namely, my sister. The guy runs very fast to the monster. He bounces off the wall of the building and catches the girl in his arms. The guy smiles and asks the girl not to be such an impulsive goddess. Beaming with a girl in his arms lands on the ground when the monster heads in their direction. The guy says that the struggle with such things should be left to men like him. King Nu is still in the hands of Beaming. She asks him to let her go. The guy listens to the girl and lets her go to the ground. Beaming asks her to leave the fight with the monster to him. The girl blushes, looks away and agrees. She says she will try to trust him. The guy rejoices and tells Xiao Tiantian that now it's their turn to attack the monster and win the battle. The guy starts moving forward. Suddenly, he stumbles over a rock and falls forward, falling face first into the ground. The guy drives on the ground and stops right in front of the monster. The monster, in turn, tries to attack the guy, and the girl covers her mouth with her hands. The dog covers his muzzle with his paw and says he can't afford to embarrass himself like that. The guy gets up from the ground. He begins to lift the tentacles of the monster and says that he has had enough. He's been patient for too long. The guy gets serious and says the jokes are over. He grabs the tentacle of the monster and runs forward, shouting that the monster asked for it. The guy hits the monster and it starts to groan. The girl is amazed by the strength of the young man. She had no idea that he was so strong. The monster falls to the ground, making scary noises. The guy grabs his tentacle again and tells the monster not to expect mercy. Beaming begins to spin the monster by the tentacle, using the windmill technique. At some point, the guy himself becomes ill, and he throws the monster away with all his strength, releasing his tentacle. The guy looks at King Nu and says that now it's up to her. The girl immediately gets into a fighting stance and says that she does not need to be reminded of such a thing. The girl asks the goddess of ice, watching a distant and very cold place, to listen to her prayers. King Nu asks the goddess to give her snowfall on human land and ice that can freeze the human world to imprison the enemy in eternal sleep. The girl uses the prison of eternal frost. The monster's body is covered with an icy shell. Then the ice begins to crack. The monster is struggling to escape from the ice prison. The dog notices that this girl can use advanced King Nu spells. He wonders how she is connected to him. Then there is a huge explosion, from the flash of which King Nu and Beiming try to cover themselves with their hand. The guy looks at the monster in the ice and says it looks like a work of art. He asks if the girl can seal the monster completely. Beiming then asks what they will do with the monster. They can't just leave it like a sculpture at school. The girl turns to the guy and says that he doesn't need to worry about it. Someone will come and sort it out later. The guy raises his hand, smiles and asks her if they can talk calmly now. The girl looks away and says that she has nothing to talk about with him. She asks him to leave. The girl looks at the guy and, looking at him intently, says that she can pretend that she did not see him at all. The guy falls into a stupor. He asks why all the goddesses are such tsundere. The dog replies that it's nice to be at tsundere for a while, so continuing to be at tsundere, the girl continues to feel better. There is another explosion behind the girl. Ice fragments fly apart. The girl can't believe that someone could break her prison. This has never happened before. The guy first tries to say something, and then notices and shouts for the girl to be careful. Beiming pushes King Nu away. One of the tentacles pierces the guy right in the sternum, and the girl manages to dodge. The girl tries to say something, but she is shocked. The guy at the same time is trying to pull out of himself the tentacle that attacked him. He's swearing. Beiming pulled out a monster tentacle from his chest. He asks why he always gets injured. King Nu asks if the guy is okay. Beiming replies that he is fine. The guy shouts to the girl to move away, because the demon is very strange. Some kind of creature comes out from the side of the monster. It begins to say that in the human world there is an ancient saying called a small body often harbors a great soul. It seems to the creature that it was a good move for him to leave the huge body and enter the human one. It says that just like a sword on a taut string, infinite power can flare up at any moment. The guy swings his fist and says they have another saying. He strikes and says that the villain was defeated because he talked a lot. The monster stops Beiming's fist and says that the power it radiates is really very powerful. The guy falls into a stupor. He hit the monster with all his might, but his blow was blocked so easily. The monster continues his speech and says that this is the end for Beiming. The monster starts attacking, and the guy screams in pain. The monster directs its arm and all its tentacles towards Beiming, releasing streams of its power. The guy can't get out of the grip, so he gets hit and starts screaming furiously. Beiming has no strength to resist. Their energy gap is too big. He wonders what kind of god this being is. All the tentacles pierce Beiming's body, pushing him onto his back. The guy crashes into the wall, which causes a loud rumble to be heard around. The dog asks the guy if he's okay. The guy gets to his feet. His prosthetic was torn off, and he tries to clear his throat. It seems to the guy that they will all have to say goodbye to life. He turns to the dog and asks how with his powers he can defeat the real deity. The dog is silent at first, and then begins to get angry. He asks if the guy is going to give up. He says that Beiming was originally a cowardly person. The guy demands that the dog shut up. He says that all his muscles and bones of his body are broken. He can't move at all. The dog thinks that it's still not enough to fight the deity with the demon's powers. The dog grits his teeth. Suddenly, the lower part of the Beiming begins to be covered with ice. He's very worried about it. Beiming's whole body is covered with ice, and King Nu stands next to him. The guy asks her what she's doing. The girl says she used ice to seal the guy's body, and thereby reduce internal bleeding. King Nu hopes that in this way she will be able to temporarily save Beiming's life. The girl turns to the guy, stares at him intently and says that initially this battle was not his. She adds that he doesn't need to interfere anymore. The guy starts screaming. He asks to wait for her. He asks her if she is looking for her own death. He demands that the girl run as fast as possible while the guy distracts the deity. The girl begins to laugh at the words of the guy. She says that the battle with the deity is the purpose of her birth. The girl, as part of the clan of guardians of the deities, constantly faces death from the moment of her birth. The girl says that death and life are nothing but the alternation of the beginning and the end of their mission. King Nu pulls out his sword and walks towards the deity. The guy is still lying on the ground and desperately asks her to stop. As soon as a girl begins to fight with a deity, she begins to yield to his power. Sounds of fighting are heard. Although the clan of guardians of the deities serves and reveres the gods for many generations, and can also use their powers, but in the end they are not deities. The girl gets captured. The monster is holding her body. He asks the girl how she wanted to defeat a true deity like him. Beaming furiously shouts at the monster to let the girl go. Then the guy turns to the dog and demands that he come up with something. The guy asks if the dog doesn't always brag about how amazing and strong he is. The dog says that there is another way that will allow you to defeat the monster. But for this, the guy must allow the dog's soul to enter his body. Thus, they will be able to activate the huge reserves of his power that he hides in himself. The guy says that the dog just decided to take advantage of this opportunity and seize power over his body. The dog asks the guy what he means. He wonders if this is the answer to his question. The dog starts to get angry. He thinks it's great that Beaming doesn't want to make his decision. At worst, they're all dead. The tentacles squeeze the girl's throat harder, causing her to choke. It looks like this is the end after all. The guy says that, although this is true, he would still prefer to believe the dog. He says that the dog will have to cope with the monster. The guy agrees to the dog's offer and says that he can move his soul into his body. The dog grins. He says that he held back for a very long time, and finally succeeded. There is a huge explosion, in place of which a guy appears. He radiates a huge amount of power. The monster notices that Beaming's demonic powers have suddenly increased. He's a little worried. The guy steps forward. Ears appeared on his head, and his hair turned ashen. He chuckles. A golden collar with a chain is put on the guy's neck. The studded collar itself radiates strong energy. Xiao Tiantian in the guy's body holds his collar by the chain and says that he remembers the feeling of returning to the body. Xiao Tiantian says the guy is so naive. It took only a few words to make Beaming believe him. Xiao Tiantian wonders if the guy really thought he was unable to defeat the snake. Xiao Tiantian says he was actually just controlling the amount of energy he was giving the guy. He begins to laugh ominously. The monster says it has become too noisy. He asks what Xiao Tiantian is allowing himself. He says it doesn't matter who Xiao Tiantian becomes. He throws the girl aside. The monster gets into a fighting stance and says that all people should disappear. All of its tentacles are directed towards Xiao. Xiao Tiantian folds his hands and is about to release an energy charge. He asks what people have to do with him. He asks the guy to open his eyes wider and see well who he is. Xiao Tiantian deals with all the tentacles of the monster, which puts him into a stupor. The monster recognizes Xiao Tiantian's boss. Xiao Tiantian in the body of a young man smiles and says that he and Xiao Hua have not seen each other for a long time. He asks the monster if she wasn't very cute once upon a time. He asks how the monster Xiao Hua is exposing himself now. Xiao Hua turns to the boss and says that it's all because she didn't listen to his words and secretly came to the human world to play. The monster says that after entering the human world, he was unexpectedly caught by people. People not only coped with the snake, but also imprisoned it for a long time so that it could not get out. The demon grins at the fact that Xiao Hua has been caught by humans. He says she's really useless. How could people get caught in a trap? Xiao Hua says that King Virupaksha always put her on her knees all year round, so her eyes were also stained with the aura of the holy spiritual eye. Thus, people intended to perfect her eyes as their magic weapon. Xiao Hua asks if Tiantian wants to unite with her and take revenge on the entire human race. Xiao Tiantian asks about revenge, and then he starts laughing. Xiao Hua is confused. Xiao Tiantian says that for people who are very weak, the deity uses the word revenge. He claims that Xiao Hua is weak. Xiao Hua is angry. She asks if this means that the boss does not want to team up with her against people. Xiao Tiantian bites his finger and says that his own strength is enough to turn the whole world upside down. Xiao Hua says that even if Tiantian doesn't want to join her, then it's better for him not to get in her way. Xiao Tiantian asks if the deity really wants to attack him, considering the fact that they are old acquaintances with her. At first, the demon hesitated whether to let go of an old acquaintance because he promised one guy to defeat the deity and return his body to him, but now he has no doubts. Tiantian licks his lips and says he will let Xiao Hua be his food. He attacks and there is a huge explosion. Xiao Hua says that he only called the demon boss out of respect, but that doesn't mean he's invincible. The demon attacks again and asks if it's true. The deity does not have time to dodge. Xiao Hua notices the ghost messengers. The deity asks if the demon really absorbed these ghostly messengers in his body. Xiao Tiantian says there's nothing special about absorbing a few ghost messengers. Xiao Tiantian says he went through 18 floors of hell to devour Yan Luo, ascended to heaven to devour the gods and Buddhas. The deity heads towards Xiao Tiantian and tells him to stop bragging. He would like to see who will be the one who eats in the end. Xiao Tiantian collects an energy sphere near his mouth and sends it towards Xiao Hua. The deity does not have time to dodge and screams in pain. Xiao Hua notices that it is part of the solar flame. Xiao Tiantian confirms her words and says that he was hot when the demon bit him off. The girl tries to open her eyes. She wonders how she could have lost consciousness during the battle. The girl rises and holds her head with her hand. She looks ahead and sees someone. King Nu is trying to figure out if it's Bei Ming. She notices that his aura is not the same as before. The girl looks around and notices that everything is on fire, and the monsters that surround Bei Ming are screaming. The snake-like deity is burning and screaming in pain. Xiao Tiantian raises his hand and asks the monster not to scream so much. He's going to deal with the monster quickly. Xiao Tiantian releases a huge amount of energy. A fire appears around him, which lights up more, and then completely goes out. Black smoke from the fire gathers and heads towards the monster. All the power of Xiao Tiantian absorbs the monster and a small sphere is formed in its place, which he takes away. Tiantian turns to Xiao Hua and says that her hatred is so strong that he cannot ignore her. The demon seems to know her pain. That is why he will allow her to become a part of it. Xiao Tiantian absorbs a small sphere and swallows it. Xiao Tiantian immediately feels a powerful force. He says it's been a long time since he's smelled something like that. The demon says that after all, the taste of the deity is really great. He begins to laugh grimly, as he has not experienced something like this for a long time. The girl looks at the demon and begins to worry. The demon at this time says that there are really a lot of deities in the human world that he can eat. Then the demon turns, remembering about the deities. He looks at the girl and asks if one of the deities is not next to him now. The girl squeezes her hand. She only now realized that the guy was possessed by a demon that was in the body of a dog. Xiao Tiantian holds his hand to his face and thinks that if you look closely, then King Nu is very good. He will be sorry to just eat it. Xiao Tiantian bends down to the girl and says that it would be better if she became his woman, so she can control her destiny. The girl blushes because of his words. She makes a wave of her hand and asks what nonsense he is talking about. The attack goes right through the place where the demon was standing. He managed to evade, saying that human women are really strange creatures. Xiao Tiantian says that he heard very clearly how fast her heart was pounding. She says no, but her body says otherwise. The girl starts to get angry. She attacks Xiao Tiantian again and demands that he shut up. An ice arch forms around the demon. Xiao Tiantian says that the girl apparently misunderstood him. His powers destroy the girl's ice attack. Xiao Tiantian says he is not asking her to become his. He orders. Xiao Tiantian grins at the girl. King Nu blushes even more and calls the demon arrogant. She pulls out her sword and, heading towards the demon, shouts that she will deal with him. Xiao Tiantian deftly catches the girl by the hand. She doesn't even have time to attack him. The girl falls into a stupor. Xiao Tiantian then bends King Nu over and kisses her. The girl blushes and can't even move. She wonders if he's sucking the energy out of her. The girl feels her strength leaving her body. Gold chains sparkle. Bei Ming is awakening. He's trying to figure out what's going on and where he's at. The guy looks around and notices that he is chained in gold chains that do not allow him to move. Bei Ming realizes that he cannot free himself. He asks the dog what's going on and why he's in chains. Xiao Tiantian replies that he blocked the guy's mind with chains. Bei Ming gets angry and asks if Xiao Tiantian really thinks he has captured his body forever. The guy shouts that Xiao Tiantian will not defeat him. The chains begin to sparkle more. Xiao Tiantian says that the guy should not waste his strength in vain, since he will not escape anyway. Xiao Tiantian says the guy has nothing to worry about. He'll keep the guy alive and won't let him hurt himself. Xiao Tiantian says that the guy will be better off if he lets him take over his body. This is the only way he can get a powerful force. The guy asks Xiao if he is going to regain control of his body. He asks why. Bei Ming trusted him, and Xiao Tiantian betrayed him. Xiao Tiantian says that the guy did the right thing, since he trusted him. He had already helped him defeat the enemies he couldn't defeat. But in return, Bei Ming gave his body. The dog assures the young man that there is nothing terrible in this. Besides, it's the best option for both of them. The guy says that although they are not connected together for so long, but the power received from Xiao allowed him to live a new life, for which he is really grateful to him. The guy says that if Xiao Tiantian is going to seize his body in this way and deprive him of his freedom, then he will have to lose. The guy starts pulling on the chains with all his might. Xiao Tiantian asks if Beiming should be told that he is depriving him of his freedom. He asks the guy, thanks to whom, in his opinion, the guy is bound by a chain of shame. Xiao Tiantian says that if he had not been called to him by this chain, he would have lost his life long ago. The guy confirms his words and says that he was really naive. Beiming says that Xiao Tiantian made him understand one thing. Xiao Tiantian begins to pull the chains harder, which is why they still break. At this moment, the guy says that a naughty dog is the fault of the owner. Xiao Tiantian is shocked that the guy was able to break the chains. He asks how this is possible, how the guy was able to get free. Xiao Tiantian didn't lend the guy his strength, so it's unclear if it's his own power or something else. The chain is completely broken, and the guy is freed from the influence of the demon. Beiming appears, who turns to Xiao Tiantian and says that he needs to be trained properly. The dog is at a loss. On his neck hangs a golden collar with a chain. He wonders why this teenager has so much impressiveness. Xiao Tiantian notices that his fur has even stood on end. He shouts with anger and incomprehension. Xiao Tiantian tells Beiming not to be so cocky. He reminds us that they are on his territory. If the guy really wants to blow up the whole neighborhood, then he was in a hurry for 10,000 years. Monsters are climbing the mountain. They rise at once and hover over Beiming, who is alarmed by their appearance. The guy screams and releases a huge burst of energy. The dog is terrified because the guy used the divine fury of thunder. Xiao Tiantian asks how Beiming is able to use this spell, because it is very complex and requires a huge amount of energy. The guy asks what else is the divine fury of thunder. He doesn't understand what Xiao is talking about, so he asks him not to talk nonsense. The guy looks angrily at Xiao Tiantian and demands that he approach him in order for the guy to teach him a lesson. Xiao Tiantian notices that something is wrong. He is sure of it. He wonders where Beiming got such powers from. Moreover, the spell looks very familiar. Xiao Tiantian remembers that such a spell was used by Yang Jian. He gets confused again, trying to figure out how the guy was able to use this spell. Xiao Tiantian thinks that it was not enough that Beiming is disabled, so he is also somehow connected with Yang Jiang. It's just not possible. Xiao Tiantian swears. He doesn't care where the guy gets his big strength from. It's useless on his territory anyway, because it's a place inside his body. Xiao Tiantian uses the absorbing void. He asks the guy if he really thought that Xiao Tiantian completely ate all the deities, Buddhas and demons. In fact, he just locked everyone in an absorbing void. No god or Buddha can destroy the absorbing void, especially an ordinary guy. Xiao Tiantian says that Beiming should be grateful to him, since time does not move in this place. Thus, the guy will never grow old and will not leave the world of the living. Xiao Tiantian asks if this is not what all people want. He asks the guy to answer if he is grateful for the opportunity. The guy is silent at first, and then asks if Xiao is mocking him. He would be a stupid person if he believed even one word of this demon. Xiao Tiantian grins and says he is serious. The guy takes off. He demands that Xiao Tiantian stop talking nonsense to him. Their battle is inevitable. He must defeat Xiao to regain control of his body. The guy gathers all his strength in his fist and is going to strike, while shouting a battle cry. The guy punches with all his might, but Xiao Tiantian is dispelled. In its place, a funnel appears, into which the arm of Beiming passes. The guy doesn't understand what's going on, but he notices that Xiao Tiantian has escaped. Xiao Tiantian speaks negatively about the guy. He says he won't give the guy a chance. His body now belongs to a demon. Xiao Tiantian says that now Beiming will stay in this place forever. He adds that he will visit him sometimes, and then begins to laugh ominously. The guy grits his teeth. He is very angry with Xiao, so he shouts at him to come back immediately. Lightning strikes all over the area. Many buildings were destroyed. There were small islands floating in the air, over which water was pouring. The guy tried to find a way out for a very long time. The guy found it hard to breathe after such a long walk. Beiming is trying to figure out how long he has been walking. Apparently, Xiao Tiantian was telling the truth. The guy will not be able to overcome the absorbing void, relying only on his strength. The guy raises his head and thinks that he is still stuck in an absorbing void for life. The guy falls on his back, causing dust to rise. It seems to him that he can't change anything anymore. Beiming can only hope that Xiao Tiantian will protect Yu'er. The guy closes his eyes, apologizing to the girl. Suddenly someone calls out to the guy. He opens his eyes abruptly and gets up from his seat. He asks who called him. No one answers for a while. The guy thinks he's having auditory hallucinations. But after a few seconds, Beiming was called again by someone. The guy grunted questioningly. A large head appeared right in front of Beaming. She turned to the guy again and said that he had an unusual bone structure. She also added that the guy looks gorgeous and attractive. The creature smiles and asks if the guy will do him a favor that can help them both. The creature asks to be pulled out of the ground. It looks at the guy with a request in its eyes. The guy falls into a stupor. He did not expect to meet a real rabbit in this place, also talking. Beaming gets down on his knees and says he knows how to pull radishes out of the ground, but rabbits. Although this rabbit looks cute, but it may turn out to be some kind of demon. The guy decides to find out the details of the situation first. Beaming leans closer to the rabbit and asks how he was able to burrow into the ground so much that now he can't get out. The rabbit says that he was one of the jade rabbits from the Moon Palace. One day, Chang'e's sister asked him to pull 2 radishes out of the ground, and he didn't even think that a dog would come and eat the moon. Then half of the Moon Palace was absorbed into this place, so he was buried in this place under the destroyed soil of the moon. The guy immediately gets to his feet. He enthusiastically says that if the soil of the moon is under his feet now, then he can be considered a man who has stepped on the moon. Rabbit says that's not the point and that the guy should get him out of the ground as soon as possible. The guy asks why he has to help the rabbit. He wonders if the rabbit is a demon. He assumes that he will pull out a rabbit, and he will eat it. Because of Xia Tiantian's betrayal, Beaming now feels like everyone is trying to deceive him. Rabbit asks Beaming not to worry. He says there is no death in this place, only eternal life. In this world, gods, demons, and even humans are all equal. No one can harm anyone. The guy asks if it's true. The rabbit confirms his own words. He offers Beaming a deal. The guy pulls the rabbit out of the ground, and he, in turn, fulfills one of his requests. Rabbit smiles and says he can even introduce the guy to Chang'e's sister. He's waiting for the guy's answer. The guy looks gloomy. He tells the rabbit to forget about dating. O reminds that their situations are very similar, so it is necessary to show sympathy and help each other. The guy grabs the rabbit by the ears and pulls it up with all his strength. The rabbit starts making whiny noises. The rabbit is sick. His face was red from crying. The guy raises the tone of his voice and asks the rabbit to stop crying, since he hasn't even started pulling the creature out of the ground yet. The rabbit blushes and asks the guy not to grab his ears, as they are very sensitive. The guy apologizes and says that he is really to blame. Beaming is considering all options for how to get the rabbit out of the ground. Beaming grabs the rabbit by the head and says he starts pulling it out of the ground. He gives himself the same command and pulls up with all his strength. Beaming keeps pulling and pulling with all his strength the rabbit's head, which is stuck underground with no way to get out. The rabbit screams in pain, but endures and shouts for the guy to put all his strength into pulling. Then he started shouting that he was sick and the guy needed to get him out faster. The guy clenches his teeth with tension. He asks the rabbit why he is shouting so loudly. Because of these screams, he can't concentrate. Rabbit says he's in a lot of pain. That's why he's screaming. The guy in response says that he needs to be patient. Beaming asks the rabbit not to cry, no matter how much it hurts him. The guy thinks about why the rabbit is so deeply buried. He swears because he can't do such a simple thing. The guy is called up again with all his strength. Lightning begins to sparkle around him. While the rabbit loses consciousness, the guy squeezes his head harder and pulls so hard that the ground begins to crack. The rabbit sheds the last tear, and then the guy pulls it out with all his strength, and the rabbit flies up. Then the rabbit lands on the ground, raising a huge amount of dust. A silhouette appears. It turns out to be a rabbit with a human body. He shows his heart with his hands and thanks the guy for his help. The rabbit asks the guy to let him fulfill his request as a thank you. The guy spits out of surprise. He wonders what kind of style the rabbit has. The guy puts his hand to his face and thinks that this contrast between the rabbit's head and his body creates certain difficulties, because of which it will be difficult for the guy to get used to. The rabbit shows his muscles and says that he has such a body because it was under constant tension underground. Naturally, it took shape. The rabbit asks the guy to say his wish. As they agreed, the rabbit will fulfill it. Beaming grits his teeth again. He wonders if he can really trust this rabbit. The rabbit couldn't even save himself, and now he's trying to fulfill Beaming's wish. The guy has no choice. He can only hope for the best. In this case, the guy decides to ask for help in destroying the absorbing void. He says he has important things to do. The rabbit turns away and asks if he said something. He pretends to have lost his memory. The guy starts to get angry and says that the rabbit very quickly and shamelessly now refuses to fulfill their agreement. Rabbit turns to the guy and says that it is literally impossible to destroy the absorbing void. Almost no one has been able to get out of this place since ancient times. Otherwise, the rabbit would not have stayed in this place. Beaming bends down and, looking at the rabbit, clarifies that he said almost no one could get out. So, after all, there was someone who was able to get out. Rabbit thinks about it and says that this man was the only one who was able to escape from this place. Rabbit says that this person is the one who is adored by countless deities and fairies. He is worshipped by Protoss warriors. Even the rabbit himself is ready to give him his heart. This man is the real god of war, called Erlan Shen by all three worlds, Yang Jian. The guy looks at the dancing rabbit and says that he seems to be a man, but an aura of nymphomania emanates from him. After God broke through the absorbing void, he left something in this place. The guy looks suspiciously at the rabbit and asks what the god of war, who escaped from the absorbing void, could have left behind. Suddenly, the rabbit jumps behind the guy, forcing him to turn around. The rabbit gathered all his might in his fist, swung and struck. The stone that the rabbit hit began to crack. There was a small explosion. The guy covered himself with his hands so that stones wouldn't hit him. Beaming asks what the rabbit is doing. Then he opens his eyes and sees what the god of war has left. The rabbit smiles and points at the object, saying that it is exactly the thing that Yang Jian left. A sword appeared at the site of the explosion, which was stuck in the ground. He was sparkling all over, and his name is the Devil's Thug. Beaming looks at the sword and asks why it has such a strange name. It looks like a very ordinary rusty sword. The rabbit grunts with displeasure. He tells the guy not to underestimate this sword. He says that whoever can pull it out will be able to cut through the absorbing void and get out of it. The guy asks if the rabbit is joking. He asks if the sword is really that strong. Rabbit folds his arms on his chest. He says it's no wonder that mortals don't understand anything. Although the Devil Thug is not the main weapon of God, he has accompanied him in battles over the years, destroyed countless monsters and demons. There is an unfathomable power in this sword. While the rabbit was buried in this place for a long time, he saw countless deities and demons trying to pull him out, but every time they just touched the devilish thug, they burned to the ground from his might, not to mention exposing him. The rabbit inhales. He tells the guy not to even think about pulling out his sword. It's impossible. He asks why Beaming should suffer unnecessary pain. The guy pulls out the sword in one motion and, holding it in his hand, asks what to do now. The rabbit falls into a stupor. He asks if the guy is a sword-pulling pro. The rabbit looks at the guy and wonders where he came from. How could a guy get a sword so easily? Beaming says that Rabbit praised the sword, talking about how amazing it is. No matter how the guy looks at him, he's still just an ordinary broken sword. He doesn't feel any power in it. The guy raises the sword, looking at him, and asks the rabbit what they will do next. Beaming swung his sword, demanding from the gods that he be given strength. He asks the rabbit if he is doing everything right. The rabbit looks at the guy with bewilderment. He had never seen anyone pull out that sword. Then the guy releases a huge amount of energy. The rabbit gets scared because of the surprise. The rabbit asks the guy to look at himself. He wants the guy to make sure he's okay. Beaming then plunges the sword into the ground. He says that for some reason this force seems very familiar to him. Rabbit says that now the guy needs to bring the sword to his heart. He demands that the guy give his all. He says that maybe the guy will even be able to cut the space. The guy at first does not understand why to bring a sword to his heart. Beaming puts him right in front of his chest, asking if he holds the sword correctly. Rabbit responds positively and says that now he should feel the power of the sword. He must merge with the sword into a single whole. The guy screams. The sword itself begins to shake. Then he breaks out of Beaming's hands and flies straight up. Beaming asks what's going on. The rabbit looks in surprise at the sword that was flying high. Then the sword started bouncing from side to side. Now the rabbit does not understand what is happening with the sword. Beaming assumes that the sword is very happy to regain its freedom, which is why it bounces so much. The sword bounces off the ground and heads towards Beaming. The tip of the sword stops right next to the guy's face. Beaming asks the sword to stop. The sword turns several times and substitutes the hilt for the guy. The guy looks at the sword in amazement, which indicates that the guy should take it with him. Beaming takes the hilt of the sword and notices how it starts to blaze with fire. Then the guy notices a strange movement. He understands that the sword is about to take off. The guy holds out his hand to the rabbit and tells him to grab it. He's going to get them both out. The rabbit smiles and says that Beaming is destined to become the chosen one. He thinks that's why the guy can control the sword, so if the rabbit touches the sword, it will most likely incinerate him. He thanks the guy for caring. The guy rises up with the sword, shouting that he will definitely find a way to save the rabbit. Rabbit waves to him and says that they will meet again, if so destined. The The rabbit shouts to the guy that he has to get out. Rabbit says he believes in beaming. In the meantime, he is going to look for his mistress, and they will wait with her for good news from him. The guy rises even higher and breaks through the hands that are trying to pull him back. The guy feels a very strong resistance that pulls him back. He's swearing. Someone wishes good luck and strength to the diabolical thug. Xiao Tiantian feels something. He understands that something is wrong. The demon starts to get angry. Then the demon puts his hand over his throat, from which something is trying to escape. A sword comes out of his mouth. The demon coughs. He then notices that he has spat out a devilish thug. He wonders how this is possible. The demon curses, and his hand tries to break the chain that hung around his neck. The demon looks at all this with incomprehension. Xiao Tiantian had definitely locked Beiming in the absorbing void. The guy just couldn't get out of there. The demon is very angry. He can't lose to a human child. He doesn't understand how a diabolical thug could choose such a weak person as Beiming. The guy rips off his collar with a chain and throws the demon away from him at a great distance. The demon shouts at Beiming and asks how he dared to just throw him a huge distance. The dog falls to the ground and lies unconscious. Beiming says he may not believe him, but he wasn't really himself right now. Beiming goes to the demon. He says that if he did something strange to him, then Xiao Tiantian should forgive him. Then the guy falls forward, but he manages to be picked up by King Nu. She blushes and is surprised that Beiming has also lost consciousness. The guy just closed his eyes. The girl grabs the guy and the dog, throwing them away from her. She tells them not to come near her anymore. It's a sunny day outside. All students go to school, including Beiming goes to school. The guy is outraged that the demon tried to take advantage of the situation and tried to get rid of him, and now he also dares to hang around with him. The guy says that he seriously believed the dog, and he deceived him and framed him, trying to take the body. Xiao Tiantian looks at Beiming with wide eyes and says he was just joking. He saw that the guy was furious. Xiao Tiantian claims that he even kissed a deity for him, but the guy is not even grateful to him. Xiao Tiantian thinks that, as luck would have it, this particular child was chosen by the diabolical thug. The demon is now completely under Beiming's control. He recalls the years when he fought Yang Jiang, and suffered amusingly from this sword. He didn't even know that the god of war had kept this sword in his body. The guy doesn't believe the demon. He asks what he should thank the demon for. He wonders if Xiao Tiantian is ashamed. The guy wonders why he is so stupid. He asks Xiao if he knows what it's like when you finally decide to believe someone, and you are mercilessly betrayed. The dog looks at the guy, tells the guy to just trust him one more time. He promises he won't lie anymore. To express his sincerity, the dog is going to use what he tried very hard to hide from the guy. Another power from the absorbing void that will help the guy win future battles. The guy looks at the dog in shock and asks if he really gives him a powerful force that will help in battles. Beiming tells Xiao Tiantian not to even try to trick him again to capture his body and attract girls. The guy pulls his sword out of his hand and tells the dog not to even think about it. If he does, he will be held responsible. Xiao Tiantian starts waving his paws and tells the guy not to take out his sword. He asks the guy to say what he wants so much. Xiao Tiantian convinces the guy that he is not lying. He says that the absorbing void not only endlessly absorbs, but also endlessly releases. Xiao Tiantian says that before he lost and became Yang Jian's subordinate, he ate all the heavens and the earth. He doesn't even know what's in his stomach. Xiao Tiantian tries to convince the guy that there are many different treasures there. Originally, Xiao Tiantian could unlock the entire absorbing void at once in his heyday, but once in the mortal world, he lost most of his demonic power. Therefore, he cannot use it as he would like. The dog says that the power he will give the guy will consume only his demonic powers. That is why Beiming should start hunting and attacking demons, and continue accumulating demonic powers so that Xiao Tiantian can release the full power of the absorbing void. The guy is surprised because there is even such an action. According to the guy, it sounds pretty plausible. Beiming himself had seen the power of the absorbing void. She's really extremely strong, so she might come in handy. The guy realizes that even with the help of a diabolical thug, he could hardly get out of it. If the guy takes advantage of the dog's offer, it will be much easier for him to fight monsters and demons. But there is still a chance that this is another trick of the dog. Suddenly, he will force him to accumulate demonic power to pump his own. The dog looks at the guy and realizes that he can't make up his mind. He asks if the guy believes him. The snake they defeated has divine demonic power. The dog says that if he is lucky, he will be able to spit out an incomparable deity like Sister Chang'e. The guy is indignant about how he understands if he's lucky. He asks if this force is also disorderly. Xiao Tiantian says that at the moment it is. The guy asks how in this case he can trust the dog. After all, this creates new problems. The guy thinks it's better not to use this skill for nothing. Someone runs up to the guy, shouting his name. It was Yuer. The guy asks how she feels. The girl replies that she is fine and there is not a scratch on her. The guy notices that she is dissatisfied with something. Yuer says that Beiming ran away so suddenly in the evening. She asks what business he was doing. Then the girl sees the guy's confusion and decides to turn their conversation to another topic. She smiles and holds out her hand, saying that it's time for them to go to school together. The girl tells herself that she should forget about Beiming's departure and ask him for answers to all questions. If the guy wants to, he will tell her everything and explain it to her. The guy smiles back and follows the girl. There is a strange aura around the school. It seems strange to the guy that the deity was eliminated, but for some reason he still feels the presence of a hostile aura a little. The guy wonders if it could have seemed to him. The girl and a guy pass by the road. Yuer turns around at the sounds of cars and the crowd of teenagers. Someone from the crowd shouts that their school's F4 is coming. Each of this group is beautiful and rich. Many people believe that they have one life since birth, which can be envied. The girls look at the blonde guy from F4. F4 is a group of 4 flower guys from their school. One of the guys says that a beauty was found in front of them in the direction of 10 o'clock. It is noticed that the girl has perfect parameters. One of the F4 guys says that Feng Sha, called the Lord of the Humanoids, can calculate the size of people at a glance. The blonde guy looks at Beiming and assumes that this is probably the same student who saved many people recently. The dark-haired guy from F4 says that the others should not dare to snatch his prey, since he was the first to notice it. After all, the girl is Yuer, the most cruel girl of the school. He would prefer a cold beauty like the goddess Mu. The red-haired student smiles and, chuckling, says that he will separate them anyway, no matter how close they are. He tells his friends to just wait and watch. All F4 participants approach Beiming and Yuer. They stand in front of them, not letting them pass, which confuses the guy and the girl. Beiming becomes uncomfortable. He doesn't understand why the guys from F4 are looking at him so suspiciously. The red-haired guy extends his hand to Yuer and, calling her a beauty, asks if he can invite her into his heart. The girl looks at the hand in silence. Then the girl turns to Beiming and asks if he took the medicine with him. The guy looks at the girl questioningly. He opens his mouth, but can't answer anything yet. The girl notices the guy's confusion. She turns around as her face has started to turn red. Yuer takes the guy by the fabric of his jacket and pulls him towards himself. Yuer says it doesn't matter anymore. She apologizes for not being able to help in any way. The girl says that they should hurry and take Beiming to the doctor for medicines. The red-haired guy immediately hunched over and became gloomy due to the fact that his courtship was not accepted. One of the guys says he's lucky because he likes the queen of the school. The guy with dark hair chuckles and offers his condolences to the guy. Yuer and Beiming meet Muruzu on their way to the doctor. The girl wonders what she is thinking about. A red-haired guy with tears in his eyes looks at a girl who left and never answered him. The dark-haired guy puts his hand on his shoulder. He says that the girl he likes is already with them. His friends should help him get to know her better. Beiming looks gloomily at King Nu and can't say a word. The girl stares at the guy and waits for him to say something. Yuer watches the whole scene and feels a strong tension between the guy and the girl. Beiming turns away and thinks that his dog is to blame for all his problems. He can't believe that the girl came straight to him. King Nu doesn't say anything until Yuer draws attention to herself by coughing. King Nu puts her hand on her hip and says that Beiming will have to find her after school in the school pool. Yuer's eyes widened in surprise. She looks suspiciously at the young man who just stands with his mouth open. Apparently, he is no less shocked. Yuer blushes and wonders why Beiming should meet Muruzu by the pool and what kind of relationship they have. All the students were watching this scene, so they immediately started discussing whether they had heard that Muruzu had invited Beiming. Many people have hope, because most guys look at F4 and envy them, but now they have seen who is the real winner in life. Everyone imagines how Beiming still comes to the pool after classes. Muruzu swims out of the pool. She says she's been waiting for a guy. The girl is lying on the tile of the pool and says that it's very hot outside, so she suggests they cool off together. All the students blush because of the idea of Muruzu in the pool. The red-haired guy is still standing with his hand raised, and the dark-haired guy asks what's going on. He can't believe that Muruzu invited Beiming to the pool. The guy with the short haircut tries to calm down his friends and says that in the end, it's just a normal way where an icy beauty falls in love with a loser. Yuer puts his hand on Beiming's shoulder and tells him to get ready to say something to him. The guy is very scared because of the mood of the girl. Yuer turns around and, looking straight into the guy's eyes, says that early falling in love will have a bad effect on his academic performance. If he dares to fall in love early, she will personally report it to the school. The guy looks gloomy because he does not understand what is happening. The girl's behavior scares him very much. Beaming approaches the pool. He can't find King Nu. He assumes that she is deliberately deceiving him because of what happened recently. Something surrounded by a dark aura is shown in the pool. Xiao Tiantian appears behind the young man and says that you need to be careful. The guy understands everything. Then King Nu emerges from the water. She climbs the stairs and exits the pool. The girl walks past the guy and the dog, drying herself with a towel. The girl looks at the guy and notices the power of the snake that he has absorbed. She didn't make a wrong choice. She hopes that beaming will help her. The guy dispels his strength, realizing that he is not in danger. He tries to cover himself with his hand as he blushed. Beaming says that the girl really works hard to keep herself in divine shape. He admires the fact that the girl trains even during lunch breaks. The girl says that ice and snow are a solid form of water. She needs to feel the state of the water in order to better understand and control the ice spells. The guy makes a serious look and says that he understood everything. The dog also stands next to him and stares at the girl. King Nu doesn't know if Beiming noticed that even though the deity was eliminated, the dark aura didn't completely disappear. The guy thinks about the fact that his feelings still did not let him down. Then he stops himself because he understands that the teacher is in danger. If the teacher's dark aura is still in the school building, then not only is she in danger, but all the other teachers and students. King Nu suggests Beiming join forces to defeat the deity, which spreads a dark aura. Although the guy has a demonic aura, he is still strong. The girl comes closer to the guy and assumes that if they work together, she will consider letting him go. Xiao Tiantian asks why he still doubts. He says that the guy needs to agree to the offer sooner. He and Xiao Tiantian are in the same situation and will definitely be able to achieve more if they team up with King Nu. Xiao Tiantian sees this as a great opportunity for him. He will be able to absorb and accumulate demonic powers. You just need to get Beiming to agree to the girl's proposal. The guy thinks about it. He understands that Xiao Tiantian is right. He and Mu Ruzu have a common goal. With the help of Mu Ru's divine power, Su Beiming will definitely be able to avoid a lot of problems. But there is one catch. The girl looks at Beiming and asks why he is worried about being in danger again. The girl asks if the guy thinks that such things together with her will not benefit him. Mu Ruzu says it's human nature. It is normal to have such thoughts. She asks him to be sure. The girl also adds that she will not make him work just like that. As long as she joins forces with her, she will reward him with a large amount of money. The dog says that Beiming is a man, so he needs to be bolder and hurry up with the agreement. Xiao Tiantian notices that King Nu is a very outstanding girl, both in terms of skills and appearance. The dog assures the young man that this is his only chance in life to get closer to the goddess. Beiming looks at Xiao Tiantian suspiciously. He notices that the dog has become very lively. The guy assumes that the demon is up to something again. The guy starts to answer, but the girl interrupts him and says that there is a rich businessman who knows her family. The son of this rich businessman is also studying at their school. He paid the girl a large sum of money and asked her to resolve the issue when he found out about the incident. King Nu says that as long as the guy helps her solve the problem, the reward is entirely his. The guy asks again if the girl is really ready to give all the reward. He says it's dangerous, and the girl doesn't even want a penny. The girl says that their clan of guardians of the deities has served the gods for generations. They hunt demons and monsters, using the powers of the gods to get the human world back on track. As a member of the Night Hunters, the girl is convinced that this is her faith and mission, and also the whole essence of its existence. The dog demands that the guy listen to the girl's speech, since the girl explained everything quite clearly. Even Xiao Tiantian can feel the blood boiling in his veins. Xiao Tiantian starts wagging his tail and says they need to team up with the girl for a holy cause. The guy shows the dog a fist and asks him to stop. Beiming is silent for a while, and then approaches the girl and apologizes for not being able to promise anything. The guy closes his eyes, and Xiao Tiantian wonders what happened to this teenager. The guy says that compared to King Nu, he is just an ordinary passerby. He has no desire to defeat demons and monsters, to do righteous deeds on a heavenly errand. The girl does not say that a guy does not need to be a selfless and devoted hero. She gives the guy a generous reward. The guy smiles and says that life is more expensive than any money, so he does not want to take risks. The beaming forces are unstable. It is impossible to determine when he will lose control again due to carelessness. Since the guy got the strength, he makes the people around him suffer and get into trouble. The guy doesn't want to hurt them anymore. He tells the girl that he has unfinished business and is going to leave. The guy leaves and thinks that he is able to cope with the destruction of demons on his own. King Nu shouts at his back, asking if he can really stay away like this. The girl says that their clan of guardians of the gods believes in God's will. She is sure that destroying demons and monsters is the fate of a young man, from which he cannot escape. The guy turns around and asks how it can be God's will. He looks at Xiao Tiantian, thinking that it was fate that forced him to meet the dog. Xiao Tiantian looks at the youth and asks why he is looking at him suspiciously. The dog says he is a believer. The girl frowns. She wonders if she has correctly assessed Beaming and his abilities. The girl believed that the guy would have at least a little courage. She thought he was different, but apparently she just made up her mind too much. Someone calls the young man by name and demands that he stop at the place where he is now. Beaming notices the dean. He asks what the dean is doing in this place and what happened. The dean glares at the young man and says that he should be asking why the guy is in this place. The guy tries to explain, but the dean interrupts him and says that he has crossed all boundaries. He wonders why students like Beiming study at their school. The man points his hand at the guy and says that he just dropped the exam in the middle a day ago, and then he started an affair. The man folds his arms on his chest, grunts and says that it doesn't matter anymore. He smiles grimly and informs that the guy will no longer study at their school. The result of the last subject exam is 0. The dean has already applied for the exclusion of Beaming. The guy will not have time to come to his senses, as he will be excluded. The dean says that as for the guy's early infatuation, he does not want such a bad student like him to negatively affect a successful student like Mu Ruzu, and therefore the guy can enjoy the last minutes of his school life. Beiming looks gloomy and clenches his teeth, as he has completely forgotten about the plot that the dean has arranged against him. Xiao Tiantian doesn't understand. Beiming has already received some of the power. He has been different from ordinary people for a long time, but for some reason he still cares about attending school. Beiming is trying to justify himself. He says that during the exam there was an emergency and he had to save people. The man will be able to report everything to the director and allow him to expel Beiming from school. The dean is happy that he will finally be able to get rid of Beiming. He is going to see what actions the young man will take. All the students and teachers gathered in a huge hall. There were people and a microphone on the stage. The director is standing near the microphone. He says that on this day he gathered everyone in the hall to present an officially and exhaustively public explanation of the recent collapse of the school gym. Beiming sits in the middle, between the guys from F4. Red-haired guy, what kind of secrets to keep Beiming? How could he leave with a girl that a guy liked? He didn't expect that Goddess Mu could like a guy like him. The director informs that the incident has been investigated. The reason was the recent repair work. He, along with other employees, gave the workers the appropriate punishment and promises that this will never happen again. The school also issued compensation to all the victims. The principal bows and apologizes on behalf of the whole school to all teachers and students who were injured. Then the principal raises and is about to announce an exceptional decision made by the school regarding one of the students present. The dean looks at the sheet that the director is holding in his hands and smiles at his thoughts that now the man will announce that Beiming has been expelled from their school. The director reads the sheet and asks that Beiming from the senior class number 2 come up to the stage. The guy is surprised. He gets up from his seat and goes to the stage to stand next to the director. The dean looks at the guy and smiles. He thinks that the guy has already realized that he is about to be expelled. But Beiming did not seem to expect that everything would happen so officially. The director says that due to the long absence of the guy in class and getting the lowest results in the class, according to the school charter, he should be expelled. The guy looks gloomy. All schoolchildren and his friends have different reactions. Someone is shocked. Someone is happy on the contrary. There is silence in the hall. The guys from F4 fold their hands and lean forward. Then they turn to each other and rejoice that their enemy is defeated. Many schoolchildren considered Beiming a weak student, so for them it was a natural development of events. One of the guys asks, doesn't say that about Beiming, because he saved a lot of people during the destruction of the gym. Beiming clenches his hand into a fist. He swears because he can't think of another way out of this situation. He really will be expelled. Yuer watches the guy and hears the discussion in the hall. Despite someone else's opinion, she is very worried about the guy. Xiao Tiantian asks the guy if he is angry about being expelled from school. He saved so many lives, and people still want to get rid of him. The dog asks to listen to him and asks if the guy can accept his help. He offers to eat all these people in the hall. The guy looks at the dog and asks him to shut up. He tells him that Xiao Tiantian should not even try to deceive him again, as he will fall for it. The guy will still do what he sees fit, regardless of the outcome. He's not going to regret it, even if he has to leave school. Then the director continues his speech and says that there is one exception. You are immediately started up. The guy also opened his eyes wide in surprise. The director says that, given the heroic act of Bei Ming during the collapse of the gym, he made a great impression on teachers and students. Also, thanks to Bei Ming, the incident with the destruction of the gym was settled without a single victim. The principal informs that the school expresses gratitude to Bei Ming for his bravery and efforts. The guy falls into a stupor. The principal continues and says that the school administration has come to a general conclusion. Not only will they not expel Bei Ming, but they will also reward him. Most of the students were gloomy. There was silence in the hall again. Everyone was in a stupor because of such news. The dean's glasses came off his nose from shock. He doesn't understand how this could happen. He put so much effort into getting Bei Ming expelled from school. This is really impossible. Yor covers her hands with her face as she blushes. The girl is very happy for the guy. The director asks all students and teachers to give loud applause to the heroism of Bei Ming. All the students start clapping. The guys from F4 frowned. They sit and think that this is too strange an outcome of events. Bei Ming scratches his head and asks about the dog. How does he like this outcome of events, where everyone honors him? Xiao Tiantian chuckles and says that the guy was just lucky. Yor folds her hands into a lock and brings them to her face. She smiles with happiness, as Bei Ming is not expelled from school. Then the director asks all students and teachers to greet the representative of the students. He calls the name Mu Ruzu. She should give a bouquet to Bei Ming. Yor leans into the seat that is in front of her. She looks at the girl gloomily. The guy accepts a gift that a girl brought him. He bows while she stares at him. Then the girl turns her gaze to the bouquet of flowers. She looks at them with indifference. The guy smiles, looking at the girl. Then King Nu abruptly takes the bouquet with one hand and throws them right at the guy. The girl turns around and leaves. The guy is shocked by this behavior of the girl. Just stays on the sidelines. Xiao Tiantian grins at the girl's behavior. The guy looks at the girl and thinks that she is still angry at him because of the refusal. King Nu behaves like a real tsundere. The guy comes down from the stage. At this time, a teacher approaches him and, putting her hand on the young man's shoulder, says that he did well. The guy nods and smiles. He thanks the teacher for his support. Then the teacher asks the guy to enter her office after the meeting. They need to discuss the young man's academic performance. The guy says he's coming in. The woman turns around and goes to her office. A dark aura emanates from the teacher. The woman smiles rapaciously as she walks back. Bei Ming notices a dark aura. He asks what it is. The dog replies that it is dark energy that surrounds the beautiful teacher again. He assumes that the problem has not been solved yet. The guy says that no matter what happens, he will protect Teacher Tian. The dog looks suspiciously at the young man. Xiao Tiantian and Bei Ming walk down the school corridor. The dog did not think that Teacher Tian would take such care of the guy. The dog asks if there is something between Bei Ming and Xiao Tiantian. The guy is embarrassed and tells the dog to stop talking nonsense. Bei Ming asks Xiao Tiantian if his absorbing void can absorb this dark energy around the teacher. Xiao Tiantian raises his head and asks who the young man takes him for. He says it's easy for him. The guy is happy. Then the dog says that at the moment it will not be possible to absorb it. In the end, he will need the body of a young man. The guy looks gloomy. He brings his hand to his face and says that Xiao Tiantian is trying to trick him again to capture the body. Xiao Tiantian waves his head. He says he's serious. He asks the guy to stop suspecting him of everything. The guy looks at the dog and thinks that he has remained at the same level. If he meets a monster that is stronger than him, he will have to team up with Xiao Tiantian. The dog looks at the young man with a question. Bei Ming recalls that Xiao Tiantian said that they absorbed a lot of demonic powers from that snake. The guy asks if they can use it to increase the level of the absorbing void. Xiao Tiantian licks his lips and replies that they can. He also adds that the guy will get a magical weapon or divine help if he tries hard enough. The dog asks why the guy is interested in such things. He asks if Bei Ming has made a decision. The guy gets up and says he hopes this skill will help when he meets an invincible monster. He can't let anything bad happen to Teacher Tian. Xiao Tiantian asks the young man to rely on him. He assures him that this move will not disappoint him. Xiao Tiantian chuckles. Everything is going according to his plan. It seems to him that in order to get an endless stream of demonic energy, he just needs to push Bei Ming and put pressure on him. The guy hears someone's voices. Someone gave a gift to Teacher Tian. Bei Ming looks and sees that Teacher Tsang is giving flowers. The woman is against it, as it is prohibited by the rules. Teacher Tsang tells the woman that he likes her very much. Tian says that's not the point. She explains to the man that his feelings are not mutual. She asks him not to bother her anymore. The guy asks Xiao Tiantian why the door is closed, but he still sees everything, as if through the walls. The dog replies that this is one of Xiao Hua's thermal induction skills. The guy asks what kind of thermal induction is. Xiao Tian says that this is a natural skill of snakes. The guy not only absorbed the demonic powers of that monster, but also acquired his skills. The guy spreads his arms to the sides out of delight. He is pleasantly surprised that he can even increase his level of abilities so much and thinks of going hunting for other demons. The dog is outraged. He tried to force the guy to master demonic powers, but no more. It's too sudden. The man grabs the woman by the shoulder and asks why she does not want to accept his gift. He asks if it could be because she doesn't like flowers. The man says that in this case he will try to give her something else next time. Teacher Tian says it's not about the flowers at all. She asks Teacher Tsang to calm down and let her go. The man comes closer to the teacher and says that women like to say one thing and do another. Teacher Tsang is sure that Teacher Tian is in love with him. Otherwise she would not have come to the football field and would not have watched how a man conducts a physical education lesson. A dark aura begins to spread around the teachers. A man hears someone coughing, turns around and notices that a student with a dog has entered the office. Teacher Tsang is swearing. He is interested in how long the student was near the office and what he saw. Xiao Tiantian doesn't like the idea of saving the teacher. He thinks that in this situation everything is the opposite. He saved the life of a man, not a woman. The guy brings his hand to his face and, addressing Teacher Tian, says that he has come. He asks about Teacher Tsang. The man releases the woman and immediately walks briskly out of the office. He turns around and thinks about the fact that the guy ruined everything. He remembered it. The man leaves the office and slams the door loudly. The teacher sits on a chair and thanks the student for saving her. Then the woman apologizes for the fact that he had to see a similar scene. The guy scratches the back of his head and says that everything is fine, so she cannot worry. The guy says that if anyone is to blame, it's only the beauty of the teacher. The guy says that all students and teachers like the teacher. Teacher Tian turns to Bei Ming and asks if the young man likes her. The woman shyly looks away, blushing at the same time. Xiao Tiantian is shocked. He doesn't understand what's going on. Bei Ming agrees. He also looks away and says that he likes the teacher. He adds that the woman is his favorite teacher. The guy knocks his fist on his chest and says that if a woman gets into such a situation again, she can call Bei Ming. He will be her personal bodyguard. The woman blushes and smiles. She agrees and says she believes in her bodyguard Bei Ming. The guy scratches his head and laughs. Xiao Tiantian is being playful. The guy looks at the dog and wonders what's wrong with him. Xiao Tiantian then thinks about why Teacher Tian's dark aura disappeared. Maybe he just imagined it. The dog starts sniffing the woman again. He suggests that the power of dark energy depends on changing emotions. He wonders what might be happening to the teacher. The teacher asks Bei Ming to sit down as they need to talk. The guy says that everything is fine and he is ready to just stand. The woman says that even though Bei Ming avoided expulsion, things are very bad for him, so the woman offers him help with his studies and homework in his spare time. The guy definitely needs to try. The guy at first stands and is silent as he was in confusion, but after a second Bei Ming says that he will try. Yu comes out of the school. The girl notices Bei Ming and waves to him. Then she comes closer to him. The girl begins to tell that their math teacher is very good. He can draw a perfect circle with just one movement. The guy at this time does not pay attention to the girl and thinks that dark energy continues to accumulate around the teacher. Bei Ming understands that he cannot delay. He needs to act as quickly as possible. At this time, the girl is trying to attract the guy's attention. When the guy doesn't respond, Yu starts shouting his name. The guy gets scared and immediately tries to say something. Bei Ming scratches his head and asks the girl what she wanted. Yu was a little angry. She was talking to a young man, and he was thinking about something. The guy smiles and says that he was thinking about something not very important. Then the guy turns around and notices Teacher Tian with some man. The guy watches as the woman got into the car to some man. Bei Ming tells the girl to go home without him. He still has unfinished business. The guy ran after the car to follow the woman and the man. Yu remained standing by the road. The girl is very angry because Bei Ming just ran away again. She noticed that Amin has been acting very strange lately. She decides to discuss it with him somehow, otherwise she will not calm down. The teacher is standing near the yellow car. A man comes out of it and grabs a woman by the hand. She screams that it's over between them and asks him to let her go. The man says that the woman is now in a dangerous position. He warns her that if she tries to escape again, he will not be responsible for his actions. Teacher Tian brings her hand to her chest and asks why the man invited her family to the villa and arranged for his younger brother to join his company. The man says he is Mr. Xiao. He doesn't need permissions to do what he wants. The man adds that Teacher Tian's parents are happy because they have always wanted to live in luxury. The woman says that this is not so at all. A man squeezes a woman's shoulders with his hands and speaks negatively about her. He is sure that the woman belongs to him, so she will never run away from him, and orders her to get into the car. The woman still gets into the car and looks at her feet. The man at this time stands near the car door and says that she continues to refuse, but her body speaks for itself. The man keeps his hands in his pants pockets, smiling. He says that Teacher Tian is pure and innocent, which is why she will be the mother of his children. The dog says that he has studied a huge amount of material in order to adapt to society. He wants the director to love him, but the guy doesn't believe the dog. He asked what happened to Teacher Tian, and he told an incredible story. The guy asks if Xiao Tian can be more serious for at least a couple of minutes. He is worried about Teacher Tian, who may be in danger. He hopes that everything will work out. The guy looks at the car leaving and realizes that he will not have time to catch up with the man and woman. The guy takes a headdress from a suit from someone passing by, handing out leaflets, and runs at full speed. The guy who had part of the costume taken away screams angrily. His head was taken away again. He asks if they will let him work quietly for at least 1 month. Beaming and the dog follow the car, jumping from roof to roof of the building. The guy thinks about what kind of man he is and why he took Teacher Tian. The car turns the corner sharply. The guy notices this, manages to react, and, grabbing the bars, turns around, but then realizes that he has lost track. The guy looks at the road from the height of the roof of the building and thinks about why not use his powers. The guy looks at his hand and uses the abilities of the snake he defeated. Small dark snakes appear in his hand, which jump off and start looking for the car that disappeared so abruptly. One of the snakes noticed that the man led the woman into a building. The guy is happy that his plan worked. When the guy is about to jump off, he notices that a boy is looking at him through the bars, who decided to look out the window. The guy gestures for the boy to be silent. The boy first falls into a stupor, and then calls his mother, saying that he saw a dog in the window. The guy puts his hand on his head. He is shocked by the boy's act. Beaming jumps off and heads towards the building where a man and a woman entered. Pink rays appear right in front of the guy. The guy is trying to figure out where they came from and what it is. A pink-haired girl was standing on the roof. She felt that her threads detected some movement. The girl is stroking her toy rabbit. She wonders what kind of demon is running around the city during the day. It annoys her very much. The guy stops on the roof and notices threads in front of him. The dog tells the guy to be careful, as the threads are impregnated with divine power. The guy pulls his hand aside and, gathering all his strength with it, says that whoever the person who created the threads is, he can attack the guy. The guy jumps off the roof and heads forward. He thinks that the threads, though sharp, are not indestructible. All he cares about is why the demon doesn't attack them. The guy jumps on the building. He thinks that the demon is very well hidden, because Beaming does not even feel a drop of demonic aura. Xiao Tian says that something is clearly wrong. Even a dog doesn't sense the presence of a demon. He suggests maybe it's not a demon at all. The guy is stressed by the situation and he decides to shout. He demands that the demon come out and show himself. The guy says that if the demon wants to eat him, then he should hurry up, since the young man has little time. No one answers the guy. He does not understand what is happening and begins to think that the trap was not intended for him at all. The guy breaks the threads with his hand and rushes to the aid of Teacher Tian. He's already lost a lot of time. The girl looking down from the height of the building thinks Beaming is small, but very arrogant. The girl has just returned from an anime exhibition, so she is in a great mood and she was originally going to let the young man go. But then the girl says that the guy doesn't really value his life. She gathers all her threads in her hand and is going to attack the guy to fulfill his desire. The guy and Xiao Tian were still moving towards the yellow car in which Teacher Tian was sitting. Suddenly they felt something. The dog asks the guy to be careful, as a strong pulse of energy is approaching them from behind. The guy thinks that the demon decided to show up too late and at the wrong time, but still the guy decides to fight the demon. The pink-haired girl notices that the guy has stopped. She assumes that Beaming is ready for battle and she likes the mood of the young man. The girl collects all her threads. She smiles insanely and says that she can handle the Beaming very quickly. Xiao Tian informs the young man that an unusual force is approaching them. It seems to him that the fight will not be easy. The guy asks the dog to stop and explain what's going on. The serpent's armor began to disintegrate. The dog is very unhappy, as they have to fight without armor. Xiao Tian grins and asks why the young man is afraid. Because he has his powers. The guy pulls the dog by the chain and tells him to leave. The dog swears at the young man and asks if he is really going to just run away. The guy says that since he doesn't have the power of a snake, then he needs to run. Beiming tells the dog that he must save his strength to save Teacher Tian. They cannot be spent at the moment. The dog is at a loss and asks the guy to stop making excuses. Beiming has to admit that he was scared. The pink-haired girl looks at the fleeing guy with a smile. Apparently, the guy sensed danger and decided to run away. She lets him escape, but at the same time sends her forces in his direction to enjoy the fun of hunting. The girl follows the hero. Inside one of the houses, a dialogue between a mother and a child is heard, who asks her if she has baked his favorite cookies. Remembering about him, the pink-haired girl uses all her strength and stops. She tisk, because the guy was lucky. After all, cookies are more valuable to her than his life. Moreover, the sun was already setting over the horizon. The girl understands that the service of the day hunter is completed, so she does not need to chase the young man. The girl looks in the direction of Beiming and tells him not to catch her eye anymore, otherwise he will not be able to escape from her. The girl jumps away from the building and heads towards the cookie. It's already sunset outside. The guy and the dog are still rushing to help Teacher Tian. The guy swears, as the snake's strength suddenly ran out. Is his demonic power not enough? The dog asks who asked Beiming to activate different skills just like that. He even managed to use thermal induction. The guy says that's why it's better to run regardless of the plan. Avoiding skirmishes with the enemy is the best strategy. Xiao Tiantian asks why this is considered a wise decision. The guy just runs away. It's a real shame. Xiao Tiantian asks the guy to stop. He is chained to the guy and it's hard for him to run at the same speed as him. The guy chuckles and asks, isn't Xiao Tiantian great and mighty? He asks if the dog has at least a drop of stamina. Xiao Tiantian chuckles. He asks what's the big deal. The dog says that, at least, he does not run away from enemies, unlike Beiming. It's already night outside. The guy just runs to the pool. He's breathing heavily after running all over the city. Beiming says they're in place. Teacher Tian should be inside the building, which is located near the pool. Xiao Tiantian lay down on the ground from exhaustion. He is breathing heavily and says that the guy runs very fast. The guy tells the dog that they need to go ahead and not waste time. Xiao Tiantian asks the guy to slow down. In front of the guy and the dog, they put out their hand, not letting them pass. A man in a dark suit and glasses says that this building is a secret club for special visitors. You cannot enter the club without an invitation. The guy is confused. He is silent and does not know what to say, because he did not even imagine that he would get into such a situation. The guy says that the secret club is the very place they write about in street leaflets. Beiming did not think that the club was so luxurious. The man is outraged and starts shouting what nonsense the guy is talking. The guy wonders if this is the right place, then Teacher Tian is in even greater danger. The man at the entrance calls out to the guy and says he needs to leave. This place is not for school children. The second guard offers to just deal with the guy. Beiming scratches the back of his head and apologizes. The dog looks at all this and wonders if the guy will really put up with it all. The guy says he's just a schoolboy who accidentally got into the club. He apologizes for the trouble. The dog considers the young man weak. Beiming leaves, and the guards laugh and say that the guy turned out to be smart since he did not confront them. Xiao Tiantian asks Xiao Guy why he leaves every time. He wonders if the guy has a character. The guy turns around and asks why such questions. He explains that if he starts a pogrom and gives himself away right at the entrance to the club, then consider that the rescue plan has failed. Moreover, recently there was not the most pleasant event for Beiming. He asks who decided to pull the divine threads on the streets of the city. He reminds me that that demon never followed them. The guy continues and says that since he got the power, his life will never be the same now. He needs to stay in the shadows until he has sorted out all the details. He asks the dog if he understood. Xiao Tiantian says that in this case, the guy needs a fashionable hat that will cover his face, or he can wear underpants over tights, like in superhero comics. Beiming, along with Xiao Tiantian, approaches the fence. He is glad that the fence is not very high. Also, the guy notices that the CCTV cameras are in the blind zone, which simplifies their task. The guy presses his hand against the fence, trying to use the rest of his strength for thermal induction. The guy doesn't do anything. Apparently, he has little strength left. Xiao Tiantian chuckles. He asks the young man if he really thought that the forces were infinite. The guy behaves quite naively. The dog was telling him to team up with Mu Ruzu, so the guy would have a better chance of gaining demonic powers. The guy starts to get angry. He asks the dog if it is necessary to say this at such a moment. He says that the dog needs to think about how to save Teacher Tian. Xiao Tiantian brings his paw to his mouth, urging the young man to be silent. He speaks negatively about the guy, saying that they will be noticed in this way. Without magical powers, Beaming is simply useless. He can't even protect himself, but is going to save others. The guy says that's not the point at all. He presses his hand to his chest and says that although special skills do not work, but he can walk, so his physical strength has improved. The guy is determined. He says that as long as he can move, he will try to save Teacher Tian. The dog is silent, agreeing with the guy without words. Xiao Tian says that the guy can do whatever he wants, save whoever he wants. In general, the dog does not care. He's going to interfere with the young man. The dog asks what is the meaning of all these rescues. The next second, the young man steps on Xiao Tian's head and climbs the fence. The dog is very unhappy. He asks how the guy dared to step on his head. Beaming reaches out with his hand to the high point of the fence to climb. He tells the dog to pull him higher. Xiao Tian is getting angry. He demands that the guy climb the fence faster, otherwise the dog will eat him. The guy reaches up to the highest point of the fence and climbs onto its reverse side. When a guy climbs over, he notices a pool in which a huge number of girls swim. The girls in the pool notice the young man and start screaming in fright. The guy falls off the fence and asks for an apology. The guy is hanging on the fence and trying to justify himself. Xiao Tian, who is standing behind the fence, asks what is happening on the other side. The girls run out of the pool. All this noise is heard by the guards. One of them is wondering what's going on. One of the guards says he heard a guy sneaking into the pool to the women. The second one started to get indignant. He doesn't understand how the guy dared to break into the Dorset Club. Is he really looking for death? In the large hall in the center sat a man in rich clothes. He was surrounded by guards on both sides. The man in the center addresses Teacher Tian. He says he invited her to this place for the money. The man says that with all the interests and debt compensation, 10 million came out, but the money was never returned, and her parents just ran away. The woman asks for more time. She can get them back. The man interrupts her and says that her bankrupt parents owe him 1 million yuan. Teacher Tian is shocked by the news. She can't believe it. Her parents aren't like that at all. The teacher covered her mouth with her hand. The man says that it is not he who comes up with the rules. Her parents stole money from him and that's a fact. The man smiles and says that Teacher Tian will not accumulate the necessary amount for her whole life since she has a low-paid job. The woman doesn't know what to say. She doesn't understand how she could get into such a situation. The woman gave all the money to her parents to pay off the debt. Perhaps the amount is small, but this money was earned by honest work. The woman recalls how her parents asked her if she wanted to lend them money. They apologized and said that everything was spent on school payments, baby food. Then someone offered her to borrow money. He said they could get a room at the Dorset Hotel and meet there, but the woman refused. Someone asked the teacher if she worked at a popular school. They offered her to use her status to earn money from empty tutor groups. The man comes closer to the woman and says that he does not want to be a villain, so he offers his own version. He had heard that there were many beautiful girls at their school. The man demands that the teacher bring some girls from school to him, and he will forget about the duty of her parents. He puts his hand on the teacher's shoulder and asks what she thinks. Does she consider him generous? The woman is silent at first, and then throws his hand off her shoulder and says that she does not agree to this proposal. The woman gets up from her seat and shouts furiously that the man will not dare to touch them. The man scratches his head with his hand in complete frustration. Then he raises his mad gaze at the woman and says that in that case she will take their place. The man pushes the woman away. She falls to the floor, screaming in pain. The woman is crying and asking someone to help her. Beaming was caught by the hotel guards. He raises his hands and apologizes, saying that he was just passing by. One of the guards grabs the guy by the collar of his shirt and asks how he could just pass by. He is asked if he thinks it is normal to climb the fence and pass by. He asks who the guy is trying to fool. It seems to the guard that the guy just wants to fight. The guy turns away and grins. A blue-haired girl comes into the hall wearing only a towel. She notices Beaming and finds him interesting. One of the guards asks the woman to return to her room, as the gentleman is looking for her all over the hotel. One of the girls asks that something be done with Beaming, since he saw her perfect body. Another girl says that Beaming should be punished for seeing her in the pool. The dog tries to cover his ears with his paws. For some reason, it seems to him that all the accusations of the girls have turned into an argument about who has a better body. The guy turns to the demon and tells him not to waste time thinking about it and come up with something. Xiao Tian asks what he can do in such a situation. He believes that it is more difficult to communicate with women than with demons. He says it's the end for the guy. The guards grab Beaming and put his hands behind his back. One of them asks the girls not to worry, as they will all receive their compensation. The guy shouts to be let go. Suddenly, a dark, powerful aura began to be felt in the hall. Xiao Tian noticed that it was the energy that came from Teacher Tian. He wonders why her energy suddenly became so strong. The dog squints and assumes that they cannot avoid the worst outcome. The guy is tense because Teacher Tian is in danger. He needs to hurry. He tries to think of another way out of this situation, but nothing works. Someone suddenly stops the women. A blonde guy appears in the hall and apologizes for disappointing them. He says his heart is broken. All the girls immediately paid attention to the guy. They all urge to look at Mr. Shen. Mr. Shen's family owns the club. One of the girls says that she did not come to this hotel for nothing. She was finally able to see the owner live. The blonde guy walks forward. He turns to the guard and demands that they release the young man. One of the guards wants to ask a question, but does not have time, as Mr. Shen interrupts him and asks him if the man has hearing problems. The guard puts out his hands in a protective gesture and says that he did not mean anything like that. He apologizes to the gentleman and, together with the rest of the guards, leaves the hall. The guy turns around, looking at the departing guards and wonders if he is saved now. Beaming realizes that the guy is from his school. Moreover, the guy is in Group F4, the guys who talked to you in the morning. He can't remember his name. The guy from F4 winks at the young man, which puts Beaming into a stupor. The guy got goosebumps all over his body, and the dog begins to make fun of the young men. The girls started arguing again about what they would do to Beaming for looking at them from the fence. They can't ignore what he did. In their opinion, this is not the way to treat VIP clients. One of them says that when her husband finds out about this, they will have new problems. Mr. Shen turns to the girls and asks them to let him deal with Beaming. The guy says that he is very sorry that women were subjected to such a shock. He promises that he will compensate for the damage. The guy smiles and asks everyone to go back to their rooms and relax. The guy also adds that he will personally send a gift to each girl as a sign of reconciliation. All the girls screamed with delight. They agreed to Master Shen's terms. They are sure that he is the heir of the Shen Corporation, since he is extremely handsome and rich. Beaming sighs with relief. Everything went well, but he really didn't see the girls in the pool on purpose. He thinks that it was not in vain that he restrained himself and did not go ahead. Xiao Tian asks to take a look at Shen. The dog says he's great, and then the dog asks the guy to look at himself, and he adds that he will never become a charming director. The guy scratches the back of his head and grunts. He knows that he will definitely not become as successful as Shen. Then the guy gets serious and says they don't have time to just chat right now. Shen approaches the guy and says that if Beiming was interested in women, then he could just ask him. He asks why Beiming climbed the fence. The guy from F4 smiles, looking at Beiming, and asks why he didn't fight back to the guards. They're weaker than a guy. Beiming thinks about what the guy from F4 knows, what Shen's intentions might be. Beiming puts his hand on Shen's shoulder and says he made a mistake. He didn't want to complicate things, because the guards were just doing their job. He apologizes for the trouble. The guy looks at Shen and says that he came to the hotel for a reason. Then he thanks the guy for helping him out. He says he will repay him in kind. Shen looks wide-eyed at Beiming's hand and says that it wasn't difficult for him, so there are no problems. The next second, Beiming abruptly runs away. The guy from F4 looks after him and thinks that he was not mistaken after all. The dog and Shen think that Beiming is not as simple as it seems. Beiming and Xiao Tian approach the teacher. They feel a hostile aura growing. The guy says they need to run forward as fast as possible. They approach the door, near which the guards are standing, and hear the sounds of help that are heard behind it. The guy understands that something has happened. The guards are trying to stop Beiming. They say the entrance is forbidden, but the guy doesn't listen to them and runs on. One of the guards asks the guy if he hears what he is being told. The guy is very angry. He stares intently into the eyes of the guards and tells them to leave and not interfere. There are sounds of fighting outside the door. A man hears them. He asks why it's so noisy and says it distracts him, so he demands that the guards check everything. Men with glasses immediately follow the order. One of the guards approaches the door. He tries to grab the handle, but the door breaks and shatters into splinters. Beiming flies into the hall, breaking down the door with his foot. He lands right on top of the guard and looks with horror at the teacher, who lies in the middle, exuding a huge amount of dark energy. The woman gets up and says that Beiming should not be in the hotel. She asks him to leave as soon as possible, because this place is dangerous. The guy is surrounded by guards with weapons. Beiming apologizes for being late. He asks the teacher not to move and promises to help her. A man approaches him and tells him not to twitch if his life is dear to him. He shouts because he didn't have time to start, as he was interrupted by a guy. The man looks at Beiming and asks who he is and in what relationship he is with Teacher Tian. Getting angry, he said that whoever the guy was, he would be only too happy to deal with him in front of Tian. The teacher immediately breaks down and shouts that the man does not touch the guy. She asks to let him go. In return, the woman will do whatever he says. The man gives a kick and orders the woman to lie still. He says he hasn't repaid the guy yet for hurting his brothers. The guy starts to get angry. He furiously shouts to the man to stop, otherwise they will all leave the world of the living. The man shoots. The woman looks at all this with horror and covers her mouth with her hand. The dog turns to Beaming and asks what he is starting again. He says that at the moment there is no time to pretend to be an actor. The guy doesn't answer him, and the dog asks him again. The guy grabs his stomach and falls face down on the floor. Xiao Tiantian approaches the guy and asks if the bullets could have hurt him. He demands that the guy get up faster. A man stands right above Beaming and asks if this is really all his strength. He couldn't even take a couple of shots. Then the man hears someone roaring. He turns around and does not understand what roared so. He sees a woman who thinks the shots were her fault. A woman asks why a man injured her student. She says she is a terrible teacher because she couldn't protect her student. The woman was standing on her feet. She began to transform. A dark aura enveloped her entire body. A voice was asking her why she was blaming herself again. The voice had been telling her for a long time that this world was wrong. She can't take so much pain. Then the voice asks to leave everything to him. The woman reincarnates and, spreading her hands, says, "Either you win or you are defeated." The demon is sure that there is no other way to survive in this world. The man points his hand at Teacher Tian and tells her to be captured immediately. The guards immediately follow orders, but when they try to grab the woman, dark energy wraps around their arms. The man advises the woman to give up immediately. The man does not understand what kind of dark energy is wrapping around his arm. Dark energy squeezes the guards' hands, which causes them to start screaming in pain. The demon asks his sister if she has heard what beautiful screams men make. She says that screaming is the meaning of her life. The demon is sure that if she uses force, then no one will dare to use Teacher Tian as a toy. Shots are fired. The man tells his guards not to shoot the woman, as he needs her alive. He's going to take his money. The demon grunts, turning to the bullets that are flying towards the woman. Xiao Tiantian approaches Beiming, who is lying on the floor, and asks how much longer the guy is going to sleep. He says that his beloved teacher has mutated. The guy says he's in a lot of pain. He was able to stop the bullets, but he was still stunned. The guy is angry. Xiao Tiantian speaks negatively about the guy. He says that if a guy has his powers, then he should not continue to be served to all opponents. The guy asks the demon in the dog's body if he even imagines what kind of pain the bullets caused. Without demonic powers, the guy would no longer be alive. The guy squeezes bullets in his hand and says that next time he will use his powers wisely. The dog says that now is not the time to blame yourself. First they need to deal with the mutated teacher. The guy says that Xiao Tiantian is right. First they need to save Teacher Tian. He wonders how to do it. The screams of the guards are heard asking the demon not to approach them. The woman uses her dark energy to hold the bodies of the guards. She spreads her arms to the sides and says that she really likes to listen to screams of pain. The demon turns to his sister and says that she always keeps everything to herself, keeps the darkness in herself, but forces herself to cherish other people. The demon tilts his head and asks if there is a meaning to life for the sake of others. She asks to be allowed to release Tian. The man is going to run away. He does not understand what happened to the woman and takes her for a monster. Dark energy is blocking the passage. A man cannot leave the hall. He pulls out a gun and speaks negatively about Teacher Tian. He says she provokes him. The demon appears right in front of the man's face. She asks if it's true. With the help of dark energy, the demon takes the man's weapon and squeezes his neck. The demon asks the man to let her have some fun. Judging by the way the man treated Teacher Tian, he deserves a terrible fate at the hands of a demon. The woman says that the man must meet her expectations. The man begins to scream in fear. He asks to be spared. He says he was wrong, and then offers to forget about the debts if she lets him go. The demon puts his finger to his lips and says that sounds good. She agrees to let the man go, but the next second he attacks, asking if these are the words the man wanted to hear. The man yells. Suddenly, the demon's attack is stopped by the voice of Beiming, who asks to stop. The guy says that if a woman deals with a man, she will hurt herself. The demon asks again about the pain. She laughs and says she's protecting Teacher Tian. The demon is sure that without her help, such a vulnerable woman as Teacher Tian would never have survived in this cruel world. The guy stares at the demon, thinking what to say. It seems to him that he is talking to another person. He asks the dog if his teacher is possessed by a demon. Xiao Tiantian says that's not the point. He doesn't feel the demon. It looks as if some dark aura has awakened the hidden personality of Teacher Tian. The guy asks if it could be a split personality. He needs to bring the teacher to her senses and not hurt her. Beiming's right leg has returned to unusability, and he no longer feels the left one. Apparently, things are bad. Xiao Tiantian asks the guy to listen to him and put his body under his control. He is sure that this is the only way they will be able to save everyone. The guy reminds the dog that he says he can absorb dark energy directly. He asks the demon if he is deceiving him. Xiao Tiantian grins and says that this is a different case. The dark aura completely captured Teacher Tian's consciousness and merged with her. It is impossible to take the energy directly. The demon says that if the guy gives him his body under control, he will be able to absorb her with his mouth. The guy says he understands everything. He knows what needs to be done. He is going to bring the teacher to his senses and try to seize control of the dark aura. At that moment, Xiao Tiantian will have to absorb the energy. The demon draws attention to himself and asks if Beiming was going to save Teacher Tian. The demon says that her disciple is a woman's weakness. She needs to get rid of this weakness, and then she will become stronger. Dark energy wraps around the guy's body, forcing him to kneel and keep his hands behind his back. The guy says that even though he is weak, he is trying his best because he promised to protect Teacher Tian. The demon asks why the guy is so worried about his teacher. She asks if the guy has hidden intentions. The guy blushes and says that all this is nonsense, since he didn't think about anything like that. Xiao Tiantian is standing next to him, who says that no one will believe the guy. The demon takes the guy's face in his hand and asks him to be honest. She feels it too. She says that Beiming has special feelings for Teacher Tian. The demon will be sorry to get rid of the guy. Then the woman bends down and says that she will teach him one last lesson. Beiming opens his eyes wide in amazement. He pulls away from the demon that was approaching him. The guy asks what the demon is doing. He demands that the demon stop this and not dare to use the teacher's body. The demon chuckles and, smiling, says that the guy turned out to be much more naive than she thought. The woman says that the guy can resist as much as he wants. The more he resists, the more she will be delighted. The guy thinks about what could have happened in the teacher's life since she has such a personality. This is not the body of a demon. It was captured by someone to whom it does not belong. Beiming falls to the floor as the demon bends over him. The guy demands that the demon return the body to the teacher. The demon asks why the guy thought it was Teacher Tian's body. The demoness entangles the guy's body more strongly and shouts that it is cruel. But she likes it. She asks the guy to continue. She wants the guy to bring her even more pleasure. The guy feels that he can't breathe. Beiming understands that he must act as soon as possible. Otherwise he will lose consciousness before he brings Teacher Tian to her senses. Xiao Tiantian looks at all this with delight. He makes a great gesture and says it's all very exciting. He asks if he needs to confirm his age. Beiming swears and says that Xiao Tiantian has gone crazy. He asks him to be more serious when his life is in danger. The bonds tighten more tightly around the guy's neck. He swears because he can't breathe properly. The dog grins and tells the guy to stop resisting and just give his body to the demon. Xiao Tiantian promises that he will deal with the demon that is in the teacher's body. The guy grits his teeth. He says there's no way he's going to let him touch Teacher Tian, even if he ends up. The woman's hand falls. The guy blushes and shouts for the demon to stop. He knows it's not his teacher, but it's her body. He needs to calm down. The guy thinks that he has the only way out. He didn't want to use it, but there's no other choice now. The guy says that the demoness asked him about why he cares about Teacher Tian. He is going to tell what he keeps in the very depths of his heart. After the car accident, he underwent rehabilitation and was finally able to return to school as an ordinary person. The guy hoped that he would return to his former happy school life, but his classmates and teachers began to move away from him, and their hypocrisy made his hope impossible. The guy certainly doesn't hold a grudge against students and teachers, but he hated himself. He hated his fate. Right before he despaired, he met with Teacher Tian. She looked like an angel. The woman then leaned over to the guy and said that Beiming needed to cheer up. She assured him that the teacher would always be on his side. Her smile was a warm sun in a harsh winter. She saved the guy and gave him a chance to start over. The guy turns to the teacher and asks if she might think that he is exaggerating. After all, it's a common thing for her, but it means a lot to him. He had wanted to say this for a long time. The guy thanks the teacher and then asks her to become his. He promises that he will make her happy all her life. Xiao Tiantian watches all this and starts laughing. He doesn't realize that it happened a moment ago. The dog falls to the floor and starts hitting it with his paw. The guy shouts at Xiao Tiantian, asking what he even understands. The guy tries to awaken the teacher's consciousness. He asks the dog not to laugh. Xiao Tiantian says he knows it. He says that if a guy wants to dominate, then he shouldn't use lines from shoujo. Teacher Tian is back. She blushes and asks Bei Ming if what he said is true. The dog is surprised that the guy still managed to bring the teacher to consciousness. The dark aura began to stabilize. Xiao Tiantian shouts at the guy to hold the teacher. The dog is going to absorb her energy. The guy hugs the teacher and asks her forgiveness. A chain appears. The entire dark aura is absorbed by Xiao Tian. The woman asks what the guy is doing. A demon awakens, who says that he will not be able to take his energy just like that. He asks who the guy is. The demon demands that the guy stop. If he continues, the demon will disappear. He asks if the guy thinks he will save the teacher. The demon assures the guy that Bei Ming has helped her now, and then asks if he will be able to protect her for the rest of her life. Only a demon can do that. He begins to shout more furiously and demand that the teacher be released. After some time, the teacher's body lies motionless in the young man's arms. He apologizes to the teacher and picks her up in his arms. He understands that the woman was hurt, but now he is sure that everything will be fine. The dog feels his demonic powers increase. He says that this time he will forgive the young man for taking advantage of his idea. The dog notices the guards running towards them. They're going to save the boss. Everyone pulls out their weapons and starts shooting. The guy creates a barrier with his help, protects himself from bullets. One of their guards points with his hand so that everyone else stops. They notice that the bullets did not pass through the barrier. They see that Bei Ming is not a person. The guy says that innocent people suffer because of people like them. The guy throws away all the bullets with his strength and says that he will give these people another chance at a new life. If they really want to live, they have to leave.